Welcome back to the home studio and welcome to episode 61 of the Stevie Richards Show. Today is the last part 3 of the 4 fabulous months in WCW. I think that's a reference to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Here to tell me about that, we have a lot more to talk about. We continue our coverage of the Raja Jackson SykoStu fallout. A bunch of different things have happened even since we did the YouTube exclusive this past Monday. But take it away and let me know if I got the 4 fabulous months reference correct, James Romero.
When I say that 4 fabulous months, I'm actually taking it from a Simpsons reference, would you believe, when somebody refers to 5 fabulous weeks of the Chevy Chase show, which I then had to research.
Oh, no, this is a Troy McClure thing. I'm sorry, it was The Simpsons, not It's Always Sunny. Yeah, Troy McClure. You may remember me from sitting in the crowd at WCW.
And folding your arms.
I know. I haven't heard from Taz, by the way. I'm sure he's hopefully not mad at me.
No.
Thought the clip would do a lot better than it did because I had a lot of interesting information in it.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, you should go and watch that, everybody, as well. So we'll do the short version of the intro, fairly short. Nothing's ever short where we're concerned when it's coming to shows.
Are we going to try to get under 2 hours today?
No. No, why bother? We actually did for last week, though. This Monday with the Forbidden Door review, but then we didn't have the news on it, so we split that off. Anyway, PWTs. The Stevie Richards Show is now on Pro Wrestling Tees. The link is somewhere. Do you remember when I said that the link should be in the description? I said this on Monday. The link should be in the description by the time this episode comes out. It isn't. But I'll make sure it's out for this Friday when this episode's out. Pro Wrestling Tees, the Stevie Richards Show, or Stevie Richards, in fact. So the Stevie Richards Show merchandise is up there, as well as the classic Blue World Order BWO t-shirt as well, and some other goodies and whatnot there. And I think there's more coming as well as Stevie negotiates, so we'll keep that all under our hats until we're ready to announce that. Fitness, the Stevie Richards Fitness YouTube channel is doing well. The channel is now featuring Stevie doing like more walk and talk stuff, which he's finding a lot easier on editing as well. And it's getting a lot more interest as well with every single video, and gaining in subscribers and views as well, which I'm pleased to say. So there's also the cameo, the Stevie Richards cameo. Nothing to do with me. I just like plugging it, and the reason why so many people, and Stevie's for some reason is being really, really coy about how many he gets. He said, I've had a couple last week. And it's how many you had today?
I had a couple
4
this morning.
Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 a day. So, and the reason why Stevie's so popular on Cameo and basically retains, even gets repeat customers on Cameo, is because he gives you more than your money's worth. As I keep reminding him, $30 for a cameo from Stevie Richards, worth every single penny and more. And of course, the Stevie Richards Show Patreon. What have we watched this past Monday? Because I know what we just watched for this coming Monday, which was Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA I Quit.
Yeah, that was from Starrcade 85. I Quit Cage match will be coming up this Monday, 9 a.m. Every Monday, 9 a.m. There's a new watch-along. Last Monday, just past Monday, was another WCW match and promo compilation. We had 2 weeks of that. So you're not just getting one match in that. You're getting a whole bunch of them. Of course, 4 fabulous months in WCW. You have to assume those matches are not very long. So that's why we decided to do the compilation. But patreon.com/Stevie Richards, watch-alongs, pre-show. We had just basically a pre-show within the show, or the show, whatever inception I'm trying to think of. But we really went into somewhat of a different depth on the Raja Jackson situation on Patreon. So
it was a shit situation, let me tell you.
Oh well, we try not to curse. That was a unfortunate.
I think for this one we're going to have to say, look, there's going to be some swearing in it.
Maybe not by us, but quoting other people for sure. So yeah, but Patreon, and also we have the show notes and other things, so you get that a couple days before the full episode. So there I go again. So you're clued in to what each and every episode is going to be like. You have premium content and exclusive accents and. Did I say accents?
You did. We're not doing the intro again, man. We're too deep.
Back to you, James, before I mispronounce another word and make it into a swear word.
Damn that Philly accent of yours, man. Accent as well. All right, then. We're going to get straight into it. Listen, half of this show is going to be dedicated to, obviously, WCW. Part 3 of 4 fabulous months of WCW with Stevie Richards. Part 1 is going to be detailing more of what we didn't detail on Monday regarding Raja Jackson. That's Rampage Jackson's son. and SykoStu Stuart Smith. So there is tons to update. But once again, I realise that everything on YouTube is really getting oversaturated with this. And if you've heard enough and you just want to do some more old school wrestling and reminisce about the old times and the good times, I guess. Not Stevie's opinion with WCW, I guess, for a point. But yes.
Could I stop you for one quick second, please?
Yes.
I think we need to explain, too. We've been doing multiple uploads of that initial YouTube exclusive video, and it just kind of confuses me because there's all these MMA knockouts. There's all this other stuff on YouTube that's monetized and fully clear for everybody to see that's really disturbing in some ways. This is disturbing footage, but the way we're handling and the way people are extra, how should I say, YouTube is censoring this extra hard for some reason, even with the blurring, even with all this stuff, we just keep getting flagged on the video.
This is karma for you, who founded the right to censor 25 years ago. Now you're the one being censored.
Oh my God. This is all my fault.
Well, we've got to the nub of it. Good. We finally figured out it's all your fault after 25 years, damn it.
God, this is a Raja Jackson level receipt to me. I didn't even know. I'm completely caught off guard.
I think it's finally explained. Right. So yeah, as I was saying, if you don't want to hear more about Raja Jackson and everything, and we've got a lot to say, including some wrestlers and MMA types, with some of the worst takes, I didn't even think it's possible for people with functioning brains to actually come out and then put their name on it and then put out on their own YouTube channels or whatever, or news or whatever it might be. We're going to be talking about them as well. But once again, if you don't want to hear that, just skip to the second half of the show, and especially on the YouTube version of it, you'll have the timestamp so you can do that nice and easy. Right. Let's get into it. Before we say anything, SykoStu has a GoFundMe out. Turns out that it is legitimate, it is verified. I believe his brother had originally said, if there's a GoFundMe, it's not ours. And then GoFundMe and Stu's brother have both said, no, this is the real one. Well over $100,000 last I checked. A couple of the usual suspects, Miro, Rusev donated, Chris Jericho donated. Whatever you can say about Chris Jericho, you can't say that he's one heck of a generous son of a gun. Mr. Beast donated $10,000 as well. So, I mean, it's a great outpouring of support for somebody who's very, very clearly being wronged. There's one thing that we didn't really talk about. We talked about this on the pre-show, and I think it's important to mention this first before we get into all this extra news that's come since Monday. And I wanted to say, we realised that Stu apologised, several times to Raja and stuff like that, and you said it was more kind of symptomatic of the culture of pro wrestling being its own bubble, but also we have to assign a modicum of blame to Stu for bonking a stranger on the head with a can of beer kind of thing. Now, once again, this is not a capital offence. You know what I mean? And things would have weirdly gone a lot different if he'd done that. The can was empty. Afterwards, Raja said he wasn't hurt by it at all. He admitted that on the stream. So the only thing that was hurt was feelings, and Raja's precious little feelings were hurt about this. But as you say, you said it was more symptomatic of the pro wrestling bubble and the pro wrestling culture, that you sort of assume anybody in the backstage is a worker kind of thing, which actually they should be.
Yeah, what I said was that Stu and probably maybe a lot of other people, because the guy AJ, I know we're going to bring his name up a bunch once again, he was the one that invited Raja, and that's where the suspicion before with myself, looking at AJ and Stu and wondering before we found the information out, like, is there something between these guys, or does AJ guy have something against the Stu guy? And apparently there is some bad blood there. But it's kind of like what I said. The wrestling business has kind of been spoiled by these celebrities and other people that have done very well. I repeat that. That's definitely something to let the guard down. But also, it used to be, even with the checks and the balances and the extreme protection of the business, the entrance to the arena, the locker room, and especially the ring, when somebody has access to a locker room, in this case, the outside, which is another point that I'm going to make should be avoided. You're out there, Raja's in the crowd, he's with another worker. So the incorrect assumption by Stu is that Raja is clued in, is, as you said in your video on your channel, he's in on the joke. he's in on the work. These are all incorrect assumptions. I don't know about the face-off, and I don't know why Stu felt he needed to, even in a work sense, hit him with an empty beer can to the head. Now, this kid also suffered a concussion days earlier. So, and he said he wasn't hurt by it. If he was like, oh my God, I'm like knock loopy, I'm sure the Stu guy would have apologized as he did when he found out that Raja isn't clued in, isn't in on the joke, isn't in on the work. He apologized profusely to him. This is where it takes the left turn. If you had said to me, like you said, James, in your video, if he turned around, boom, and Raja turned around and popped him or hit him or grabbed him and said, don't you ever do that again, I'm sure the Stu guy would be like, what's going on here? They would have broke it up. He still would have apologized. And I don't even know if it would have been squashed, because once Raja seemed to have it in his head, I'm going to get this guy. I'm going to F up a pro wrestler for real. The 2 hours leading up to it, even when the Black Pearl guy was standing there going, laughing, oh, we're always working. And the Stu guy sitting down, Raja standing there, Stu and Black Pearl seemed like it's all been calmed down. Raja standing there still rocking back and forth. And dude, the look on his face, if I was there, I'd be like, something's not right with this guy. Wheels are turning. He's thinking of something. This is not squashed. And as somebody who runs the school or the promotion, I'd be like, we can't let this dude anywhere near the ring. Instead, the opposite happened. So, like you said, in an alternative timeline, if Stu hit him and Raja grabbed him or wrestled with him or even popped him back, I think it should have been all squashed, but I think he was already, it felt like he already had an idea in his mind, or the AJ guy was already telling him, do this to this Stu guy. I don't know, but it just didn't seem right no matter what would have occurred at that particular point. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, funnily enough, I listened to Bradshaw's take. He said the exact same thing as me. He said, well, if he just punched him back right there and there, got into a scuffle, and then sort of just,
got it out of their system.
Basically stood out of his system. Yes, got it out of his system, stood on business, shook hands afterwards, laughed about, and then moved on. It could have been a completely different thing. But we don't do alternative timelines. This isn't the multiverse. So that's not what happened. We're going to go straight to AJ Mann, actually. Just before, I wanted to mention also on this live stream, Rampage, Raja's father, phoned him up beforehand, laughing that he was getting beaten up by guys in tights. So just one thing after another, gaslighting someone who is emotionally stunted and basically a psychopath at this point. Right, let's get to AJ Manor, who is the cowboy-looking dude.
Not to be confused with Michael Manor.
No! For goodness sake, no relation. I mean, there's less ends in this one anyway. Anyway, AJ Manor posted, I think on Facebook, a post that he's since deleted because it is mind-meltingly a stupid position to take, especially when you're on stream saying what he was caught saying. Basically, tag him, beat him up, and I'll back you up if he tries anything. Stu tries anything. I want to take a moment to address the recent incidents at Knox Pro. First and foremost, my thoughts are with SykoStu and his family. The guy that you were going to... Anyway. No one ever wants to see a fellow performer get seriously hurt. There's been a lot of speculation online about my role that night. The truth is, I was in character, and speaking in the language of wrestling. Everything I said was part of the show, and I never intended or encouraged real harm, Stevie.
Well, I'm going to stop it right there and say someone is instructing him to say this. Or like Rampage Jackson with his statement, he went to ChatGPT because he did not, that is not Rampage Jackson.
He did not formulate these words or anyone. Anyway, this was a situation that unfortunately got out of hand due to miscommunication behind the scenes. You were the one communicating and a bunch of preteens on Kick. Anyway, wrestling is built on trust, respect, and protecting each other in the ring. That's why I stand for, and anyone who has worked with me knows that. That's why I stand for, there's a word missing there. I respect this business, I respect the fans, and I respect the performers who step between those ropes. I hope we can focus on Stu's recovery and making sure... focus on Stu's recovery and not your part you played in it, geeing up a nut job to, kill him. This is the most, apart from the fact that it's the most unbelievably self-serving post, it's a complete lie as well, because you on stream, I never intended or encouraged real harm. Yes, you did. That the quote says, on that stream, you were caught encouraging real harm. And then if Stu fought back, you said you would back Raja up.
Yeah, that's about right. That is about right. What seems like here, and this is the one thing that people have been debating about the criminal part of this, or maybe even the civil part, that pro wrestling is supposed to be fake. It's supposed to be a work. It's supposed to be a show. This quote here, this statement that AJ's saying is basically, we were just all kind of part of the work and it just got out of hand. And it was just something unfortunate and miscommunicated. There's a lot of wording here that says there's no guilt involved or no intention, which the stream obviously shows multiple people having intentions and basically premeditated sense. But do you see what I'm saying with the wording and the way it's chose and that gray area of work or shoot? There's people still, I talked about it on Patreon. Somebody actually put a video up saying, well, obviously this is a work because look at the way the fist just brushes the beard and look at the way Stu's selling it. I was like, yeah, he's selling it because he's choking on his friggin' teeth. He's bleeding. He's knocked out and he's halfway to a coma. And he's literally, the word of the guy talking to Raja on the phone afterwards, he's flatlined. So nobody knew if this dude was even alive or dead. But he might have been alive enough for people to pin him and then make a cover and a count by the same referee that people are giving grace to say, well, he's not an MMA referee. Well, guess what? Maybe we should have some MMA referees.
On the interview, you posted this to me. I'd already seen it, by the way. Several former and current Knox pro wrestlers on the Scaling Up podcast. It was on YouTube, including Douglas Mallow. That name's going to be coming up a couple of times. He was the guy who, along eventually with some others. Now, I did mention this. I'll mention that in a second. He gave an interview. He was the guy who Raj actually tried to double leg and Douglas actually headbutted him, put him in the corner, not calmed him down, basically with other wrestlers who followed him. He was the leader. There was another wrestler outside with some face paint who did come into the ring first, and we were like, well, he's not doing the greatest job of stopping the fight, but he was trying. Turns out, I think I'm right in saying this, he was 17 years old. I was like, he's a boy seeing something he's hopefully will never see again and probably never saw beforehand and doesn't know how to react. Kind of thing. So, I mean... Yeah,
but he's basically being more of a man than any of the other guys outside of Doug Mallow, right?
Yeah, basically. Especially that referee. I don't think the referee's getting criticised enough. We'll get to the referee in a minute. Anyway, Douglas Mallow said this and sort of registering his disgust at the wrestling school for trying to cover up or encourage no cooperation with police. This is what he says. The most disgusting thing that people at this school are being encouraged to not cooperate with the police. From what I hear, the police were there investigating the scene shortly after Stu was removed. And there have been multiple requests that have gone downstream from upper management to not talk with the police directly if they are contacted and to only let a certain group of individuals interact with the police. That is extremely dishonest. Is it not illegal? I don't know.
It's obstruction of justice, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. It might be obstruction of justice if you lie to the police, or maybe that's how it works here. If you lie to the police and say you know nothing, but it's not.
What about witness tampering? Witness tampering.
Yeah, witness tampering
or something.
Would be close, yeah.
I mean, it's definitely morally or even legally, it's not right, or both. Definitely not morally right. And this is a guy that worked in this promotion for 11 years. And that's what Doug had said. You think these people are your friends? They're not your friends. Mm-hmm. And that's proven in the worst way possible.
To finish off the quote, you guys let your friend almost die, and now you're trying to have people lie for you. And this actually, allegedly, is the initial message that was sent out by Knox Pro's Kevin Thomas, KT King, on the SykoStu Roger Jackson incident. This is as follows. Please refrain from engaging in comment sections on social media posts about this tragedy. It will be weaponized in potential criminal and civil cases. Fly low. Keep in mind civil cases. If law enforcement or an attorney for the suspect contacts you in any capacity, let someone here know right away for guidance on how to address them. Now, this tells me, at the sake of trying to squash a criminal investigation, they're actually more interested in the civil case that I suspect will be levelled against the school for their part in green-lighting, one, letting him in backstage where the wrestlers were, even though he shouldn't have been there, really, and two, agreeing to let this maniac do a spot with Stu. And here's the other thing, is that as far as I know, and I said this on Monday's one, they never interacted between the initial can bonk thing and then when Raja got into the ring, because I believe Raja was told by someone at ringside what he was going to be doing. Like, there was no running through, as you said, there was no running through of the spot, there was no checks and balances. They just went, right, you're doing a slam. The assumption that a non-wrestler who is clearly not right in the head will do the right thing is such an impossible lapse of judgment.
Yeah, it absolutely is. There's one word, and I don't want to split the words up too much or pick them apart. If law enforcement or an attorney for the suspect contacts you, do you think it's just a bad choice of words, or they meant if any of Stu's legal representation, if he gets any? Because wouldn't they be on the side to try to quell the defense? You know what I mean? They're part of the defense, if you think about it at this point, in some regard. Or are they going to basically cooperate? It looks like they don't want to cooperate. Here's my question too. I don't remember if Doug or anybody or this KT King said who sent the text. That's pretty important. Who's the person in upper management that's trying to tamper with witnesses or maybe obstruct justice?
Okay, well, this doesn't necessarily answer your question, but there are two owners of this school. Rikishi, WWE Hall of Famer, we'll get to that in a minute. Not that he's going to be stripped to the Hall of Fame, of course. And Black Pearl, his cousin Reno Anawai. So they are the two owners. I suspect that this comes from the top. Why wouldn't it?
Yeah, I can't say one way or the other. Do you think they will take away his Hall of Fame induction?
No, didn't take
I thought you said they are. I don't.
No, that was ID.
Yeah, they took away the ID, and we're going to talk about ID as well. The checks and balances thing, before we move on, this is the whole thing. And like you said, there is a little bit of guilt with the system, with the culture of the locker room and wrestling. They're just out there like it's a cookout, like it's a barbecue, hanging out, very accessible. I do understand in some ways with independent wrestling, making yourself available to the fans, interacting, having meet and greets. This is a completely different thing. This is something where you need a barrier, physical or metaphorically, where nobody can get the access. In other words, like I said, if somebody makes it into the building, it's like, okay, is that a fan? Is that a worker? If somebody makes it back into the locker room and sitting there and has bags or has someone and is talking, and then there's a wrestler on the roster that's vouching for them, your incorrect assumption sometimes at this point is going to be clued in, knows it's a work. Oh, they're involved tonight. So, okay, they're somewhat trained. Do you see what I mean? When you break through all those checks and balances and barriers and get to the locker room and people are communicating and welcoming you to some degree, you're thinking, oh, okay, they're part of the deal. That's not the case. Outside eliminates some of those barriers and checks and balances and allows for the water to be muddied. And now you don't know. And now you have to err on the side of caution from this point on and just say, if I don't know these people, everybody's a mark, everybody's not clued in, and we need to protect ourselves, and we need to bring back kayfabe and go somewhere else and get away from them.
Let's go to the ID thing straight away. Right, this is a WWE ID was affiliated school. I imagine, now this is just pure speculation on my part, I don't know how many checks were done on this school, but, you know, it's run by a former WWE star and WWE Hall of Fame, and, you know, basically figured in, especially with all his sons in the company at the moment as well. So, and anyone, I think like the initial 5 or 6 schools, nearly all of them have, you know, Seth Rollins has one that's affiliated, Cody Rhodes has one. I think, is it Reality Wrestling Devons?
No, that's Booker T's.
I'm sorry, I completely messed up on the other video. It's Booker T's, my apologies. You know, they've all got, you know, strong links to WWE, apart from like one that I don't think does, but all the rest do. Anyway, I'm wondering if someone from WWE would have gone down there and then like seen this scene of basically having a NASCAR cookout in the afternoon and looked around and think, maybe you should all be a bit more professional, because you've got the WWE logo on your website and you're affiliated with us kind of thing. You brought this up in the pre-show.
Well, I did bring it up because you even look at most of the roster, like Doug Mallow and the other guy that were on the podcast, they look like wrestlers. But there's a whole lot of people that I'm looking at saying, this is a WWE ID thing, and obviously it's politically aligned with Rikishi being favored politically by the office. But I would look at these people, and outside of the Doug Mallow guy and the KT King, I believe is the other guy next to him in the podcast. If I'm wrong, I apologize. They look like they have the potential to maybe go to NXT or somewhere else. But the others, it's like, where is the feeder system to put people in NXT, WWE, or bring them along? I don't see it. So yeah, now obviously everybody's sitting out there having a cookout. Maybe there was a beer can involved that was empty. Were they drinking during the afternoon? That's not reflected for. I have a feeling WWE was not putting out a standard operating procedure, a standard template on now you need to run. You're essentially developmental territory. So you need to now look like a WWE territory, like FCW used to look like OVW, even like Deep South to some extent. But it seems like the brands are all kind of doing their own thing independently and just have that badge or sticker of WWE ID. Here's my question back to you and everybody in the comments. Do you think WWE is going to do away with the ID program? And do you think they're just going to be very, very limited? Because Booker runs a great school and a great promotion. Devon's not ID, but I'm impressed with what Devon's doing down there with his school. He doesn't have a TV deal or anything. Cody's Nightmare Factory right up there, like AEW never took advantage of that the way they should have. That's run really well in a sports performance facility. So in the other ones I don't know about, but Knox Pro just reminded me of an independent that I came up with, in the 90s. Just very gritty and not very professional looking.
I've got breaking news, as it were, but nothing too interesting. Right, so the Knox Pro website, I said on Monday, I think on our show, that they'd taken off the WWE ID logo. Someone, I think, commented and said, no.
No, you said in your video, but on Monday, they were still officially WWE ID, but on your channel, Tuesday, you said that it was taken down.
Thank you. It wasn't taken down. I checked this morning, it was still there. But I can actually change. Here we go. They've just whited out the WWE ID logo from their website, and also, whatever this means, WWE have unfollowed Rikishi on Twitter. So there you go. They're really distant. I know these seem like small things, but they are distancing Rikishi.
I don't know. And this is something that is really unfortunate, too, because I don't know how involved Rikishi is. He does a lot of shows. I think he was even going to do Memphis Pro Wrestling coming up. I saw an ad for that on YouTube. So he's still working indies and making appearances as far as I can guess or speculate. So it seems like Rikishi attached his name to it, and obviously a family member is there to run it in person. But who's going to suffer the major losses, the major loss of any kind of affiliation? It's going to be Rikishi personally. They unfollowed him on social media. I don't know about getting booked on any legend shows for WWE or anything like that, or what's going to happen, but I'm looking at your eye. You okay?
Yeah, I'm just fine.
I don't cry. The Stinky Face podcast is not going anywhere.
Man, don't scare me like that, man. Seriously. Right. Let's get to. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's almost funny. It'd be funny if it wasn't so. Is that why you were rubbing your eyes? You read the quotes I've just
again?
got itchy eye. Leave me eyeball alone. Goodness me. I've never had so much scrutiny on how I scratch my eyelid. Right. Here's the thing that I think it was Tom Lawler, Filthy Tom Lawler, former MMA star in UFC, and then, he does pro wrestling now, or did anyway. I think he's just had hip surgery. Now, he posted, somebody uploaded an alternate angle of this, right? After Raja Jackson's pinned into the corner, and as they are basically scuttling him out of there, as he's still trying to fight all these guys, Stu Smith, SykoStu, is still unconscious. At one point, someone described him as flatlined. I mean, he wasn't medically flatlined, but, I think he was put into an induced coma. That was one of the rumours out there. We can't say for sure. Anyway, he's there choking on his teeth and his blood, as has been described. For some reason, Another of the wrestlers, who obviously wasn't getting involved in the fight, slid into the ring and pinned SykoStu. And the cowardly referee, who was stood there watching nearly 24 unprotected headshots and did nothing about it, counts the pinfall. Is this symptomatic of pro wrestling, or are these just two of the stupidest people to walk the planet?
It's both. It's symptomatic, and I was going to make a point about the Doug Mallow guy and then the other guy. If his name's KT King, then I got it right. If not, I apologize once again. The two guys from the podcast that literally were speaking truth from witnessing it and being a part of it and all that stuff. And also, the weird part about that, and I'm going to talk about it right here, nobody's getting on the referee. As a matter of fact, people are defending the referee in the wrestling bubble. Nobody's getting on Raja to a point. We're going to go through all the quotes and saying Stu burdened some of the blame on him. And we've already talked about how the situation, if it went differently, yes, we understand that, but that's not what happened.
Can I just say this
as
well?
I'm
very sorry to interrupt. Just to clarify that Stu statement. Okay, if he'd open hand slapped him as hard as he could, he would have deserved a couple of punches and maybe a knockout for that. That is still not a capital offence. You still, when someone's knocked out, the fight's over. Can we just agree on that? Like, nothing that Stu did.
We agree. The heat of the heat of the moment thing of bip, back and forth, right?
Yeah.
This is bip, apologize, clue him in, smarten him up, apologize again.
Accepted
the apology, shook his hand, but his face said a different story. Even when he shook his hand, he was looking away like, I got something on my mind. It's all premeditated, and it's all on a live stream. So whatever live stream kicks or whatever, you can delete it all you want. It's somewhere out there. Someone downloaded it. People have it. So you're not getting out of it by deleting the stream. Here's the crazy part about the wrestling business, the negatively crazy, hilarious part about this business. Do you know who has the most amount of heat in some people's eyes?
Go on.
Doug Mallow, for opening his mouth and stooging it off and telling the truth about it. There's some circles of wrestling people that are saying, that dude's never getting booked again. Am I wrong?
Do you know what? He should be booked in NXT. WWE should sign him up, because there's, I guess, far few people in life with enough moral fortitude and character to do what's right, and he did. So he should be rewarded.
Yeah, but in pro wrestling, if you think for yourself, if you have a thought or have any kind of moral compass to speak up, you're the one. We live in a day and age where you actually shoot the messenger. The person who reports the crime is going to be scrutinized more than the person actually committed it.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking from what I know, and I said it on Patreon, and I'll echo it again in a bit after we go through all these takes, because this is not the wrestling business I know. This is not it. But the parts that I do know that are negative are starting to creep up a little bit. The confirmation bias, the gaslighting, and looking at the guy, Doug Mallow, and the other guy going, you'll never work again.
Let's talk about this clown who pinned Stu. He didn't put him in the recovery position. He's obviously choking and, dying, basically. But then, someone's got to get their shit in. That's wrestling. That's wrestling at its most base level, I guess, like the worst aspects of it. Anything else to add about the ref and the guy who pinned him?
Yeah, the show must go on BS that we're hearing, and some people's take on this, like he only pinned him because it would calm the fans down. No, the guy laying there choking on his teeth in almost like a medically induced coma, or you don't even know if the guy's alive. They don't even know if this dude was breathing. And he got covered. And the referee, who completely showed inaction up to this point, finally gets to action and counts a 3 count. What are we doing here?
Right. I think I've seen this being compared to the mass transit incident. I've seen New Jack stabbing that dude multiple times when he punched him hard twice in that match, and New Jack admitted that he was trying to kill him. I mean, I've heard it compared to those things. I want to compare it to a story that not that many people in wrestling know, and it is Mighty Zulu Ron Pope. Now, if that name isn't on the tip of your tongue, well, join the line, man. That name's on the tip of nobody's tongue. versus Frankie Lane, Cowboy Frankie Lane. Now, people might, on the Storytime with Dutch Mantel podcast, might have heard that name because Dutch used to tag with him in Puerto Rico in 79, had the Puerto Rico's greatest ever run of main event sellouts in 79. Anyway, a disagreement between the two. I don't know what it was about. Anyway, later that day, this was all premeditated. Frankie Lane had his head looking out through the curtain, watching the matches, and Mighty Zulu Ron Pope smashed his head in with a steel pipe from behind. And that strikes me as like the closest correlation that's happened in wrestling to this. It's like, okay, you just tried to kill the guy. You didn't even do it face to face. And you let it fester. And this was in, I don't know, the late 70s, mid-70s?
Well, in some ways, this is worse because that guy's in a sacred part of the arena. He's backstage. He's watching matches through the curtain. And somebody he's supposed to trust with his body, not only in the ring, but around that environment, literally hits him in the back of the head with a pipe. And you said right here, Lane suffered lifelong brain damage, changed his personality, obviously concussions and CT. We didn't know anything about that in 79. Continued to wrestle, as you said, and he had a great run with Dutch in Puerto Rico. That is insane. Now, what happened to the what the Ron Pope guy is the one that did it, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he continued wrestling, but he
Zulu
sucked.
Ron Pope. So what was he blacklisted after that?
No. He wrestled up to, I checked his matches, he wrestled up to 86, never did anything in the business. He was a horrible wrestler. He was shaped very weirdly, had a great body, but he was like all limbs. He was almost like a daddy long legs of a wrestler. He was weird. Anyway, he was no good and he never made it anywhere in the business. I don't know I don't care what the argument was about. You don't try and kill someone with a steel pipe, for goodness sake. One more thing to mention, there's still been no arrest. What do the police need?
I don't know. I think if he hasn't gotten arrested yet, you said that you guess he might be hiding, but at the same time, Rampage Jackson's not hard to find, and you find him, you're going to try to find the kid. I think there's more of I don't know. It could be more of a political thing. It could be more because his dad's famous. I don't know what it is, because I would have assumed if they showed up to investigate that night, the kid's walking around outside still live streaming. Don't you think that they would just go to him? I watched a million of these body cam videos where once something happens, you're going to the victim, then you're going to the suspect, right? Wherever they are, you're trying to find them. So if the arrest doesn't happen by now, at the time of this recording, when the episode's out, I don't think they're going to arrest him.
The fix
the civil case as a whole. It's so weird, isn't it?
Once again, just to wrap up this bit, we're going to be talking about other people and their terrible takes on this as well, and we're going to be stripping those down to the bone as well. But once again, Stu Smith has, I believe, an official GoFundMe out there. It was confirmed by GoFundMe as well that it was all verified. And we'll try and put a link in the description of that as well if you want to check it out. Once again, it's already over $100,000. I figure I'm not an expert in the American, medical system. We've talked about it here, there, and everywhere. It can be incredibly expensive, even if you've got insurance. So every penny will obviously go to his health. Best we know, everything information-wise that's been released about Stu so far, it's as bad or worse than you think it is. Because originally it was said that, he's back home Saturday night or Sunday morning or whatever it was, and he wasn't. We believe he's still in critical care. He's struggling to communicate, struggling to walk. He may very well never be the same again after this incident. So I just want to get that out there one more time. And let's go to the terrible, terrible, terrible takes that three people in specific we're going to be talking about. And they are Rob Van Dam, Mark Henry, and Chael Sonnen. We'll talk about Chael Sonnen in a minute. Once again, most people see this for what it was, a desperately pathetic, half a man severely overreacting because he's got daddy issues and he was trying to impress a bunch of preteens on Kick who were gaslighting him for 2 hours. I mean, it's just the most pathetic state of affairs. And, the people, Jimmy Smith, he was a former WWE commentator, in fact, but more well-known MMA commentator, JBL, Douglas Mallow as well, have come out with great opinions. A lot of people have of the situation, maybe what they would have done, insiders and the culture of wrestling. I still say that your take is the best of all, Stevie. I'm biased, I understand that. But apparently there are a few people out there who have outlets to disseminate their dog shit opinions. who are partially or even wholly defending Raja Jackson trying to murder a guy because he likely bonked him on the head with an empty beer can as an inside joke / misunderstanding. Right, first up, Chael Sonnen, the MMA king of rage bait clicks, I think is fair to say. He does very well on YouTube as well. Here's some quotes from Chael on his YouTube channel. Chael is friends, by the way, with Rampage Jackson and Raja Jackson as well, and he described Raja as calm and polite and just a great guy. So he's impossibly biased. You can't get more biased. And he even says that, he doesn't say he's biased, he just says, oh, you know, the great, and he's misunderstood. Then he comes out with this utter tosh. Right, some quotes here. This is a wildly complicated situation. Is it?
Nope. No, it's not.
I watched this thing 20 times before I made this. You should have watched it 21 times. That's one for every punch. Or 22 times, however you count it. While they were very stiff shots, not what we would call a working shot, he isn't a pro wrestler. It did not appear that Raja had lost his temper. It did not appear that these were being done out of anger.
What video was he watching? And what stream was he watching when this kid was getting angrier and angrier and angrier and completely off the reservation angry and still angry afterwards, and even admitted that he was trying to F up a wrestler for real? Is that the quote? I'm going to F up a wrestler for real.
It's been my dream to F up a pro wrestler for real. That's what he said. I've got more.
We? Is he one of us, or is he talking about we in the MMA world? Because I guarantee you, I watch a bit of MMA. If you're laying there and you're defenseless, even after the first shot, John McCarthy or somebody's diving in. What if somebody else? I'd love to see an MMA or UFC match where the guy gets knocked out on a slam, which we've talked about. There are compilation videos of people getting suplexed or slammed and out before the first punch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would love Chael to look at an MMA fight or a UFC fight where the guy gets punched 21 times, but he wasn't punching him with full force. It wasn't a working shot, but it was just somewhat heavy. That person would never fight again, right? And that referee would never ref again.
Paul Semtex Daly, he was an English MMA fighter some years ago. I think he was out-wrestled by Josh Koscheck, right? Like in the early 2010s. After the bell went, he punched him in the back of the head. Guess what? He was banned from UFC for life. I don't know if that had happened now. So I don't think UFC's got any morals at all.
Well, it depends on what kind of draw you are, right?
He was an up-and-comer as well, Paul Semtex Daly.
No, but I'm just saying, if he's a Conor McGregor or even a Chael Sonnen back in the day, or any of these guys, they sell tickets. So your worth depends on, you know what I mean? Your worth depends on how much of a problem you are, and you measure that.
Hey, well, you know, Conor McGregor lost a civil case for sexual assault, and, you know, he threw a trolley through bus windows and instigated riots and punched old men in the back of the head when they didn't want his whiskey, and done numerous horrible things, basically. UFC and Dana White still not cutting ties with him, and that's because he's a draw still.
Yeah, because one time he said, who the F is this guy? And that went viral, so he's worth it.
Yeah. I'm going to speed through some of the other things he said, because I've got a page here. At this point, this is Chael Sonnen. At this point, it appears that Raja marked out for his own gimmick and really began laying some shots in, but these shots aren't done out of anger. And if you want to understand what happened here, you're going to have no ability to get into the eye or mind of the DA or a potential juror. You're going to have no ability to do that if you don't understand emotion versus action, right? The action is supposed to look like he's punching him. The action is supposed to look like he turns him into 180 and slams him down on the back of his head. So then where you cross that already blurred line, right? I mean, yeah, if you're stupid, you can't tell the difference, I guess. Brock Lesnar trusted Braun. I'm sorry, I ran this through a translator. It's not perfect.
That was his nickname. Braun, come
Braun,
here. I got something for you, Braun.
Anyway, Brock Lesnar hit Braun. What's he called? Braun Strowman.
I was going to say, after he punched him, it was Brock because he saw multiple Brocks.
How many Brocks do you see? Yeah, well, okay, that's not a good correlation whatsoever, so we'll scrub that out. On getting a receipt, it just means go make it look good. If he embarrasses you out here, go embarrass him there. If he walked up and punked you in front of the boys, go out there, punk him in front of the crowd. Get even with him. They didn't mean go out there and hurt him. Well, who didn't mean that? Because apparently several people did mean that on the live stream. Punk him in front of the crowd, get out, hurt him or go out there and have a fight with him. These two are cooperating. Are they? No, they're not. But one is a worker who fully understands that, and Stu, the other, who apparently is cooperating, is not a professional wrestler that's at an event and knows what he is told by people that you trust, which is to go and get even with him. This is word soup of total contradictions to defend a friend of yours. More, if Raja attempts to take a defence in court from a legal proceeding, the police have not arrested him, but we already know what happened and we've got it on video and it's gross and it is an assault. Oh, apparently it is an assault now, and it is outside of what was agreed upon in pro wrestling, so apparently that's now that. And so many people have made this mistake in the sport before, thinking, well, it's up to the referee, you know, whatever the referee says. That's false. If Raja is saying he did it in retribution to the beer can because that's how the boys told him to settle it and Stu goes along with it, I mean, you will truly have a kayfabe moment where these guys could build. These are in DC, guys.
Can I stop you?
Please?
This sounds like a mark just saying wrestling terms and not even knowing what they mean or where they're placed.
Yeah.
Do you get that? Like, I'm using the terminology so I know the business.
No, he's saying we. We in the business.
But Raja didn't understand his gimmick. He doesn't have a gimmick. He's not a worker. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. This isn't getting picked up by Triple H, but on the indie scene, you now have the makings of a good angle. So he's trying to turn this into a money not spinning angle. An angle in exchange for your reputation, even if it's make-believe, is a trade that most guys would take. Now, I'm getting in front of this, and I'm making these predictions with how having news if SykoStu is injured, if his jaw's broken and some teeth loose, all of a sudden you're having a very different conversation, but you have the police. Right. Chael then made a second video doubling down on the first video. Here's the thing.
Can I stop you right there?
Please.
The scary part about this is, and I know a little bit about this, is the JBL Blue Meanie thing from One Night Stand. And they gave Meanie the lawsuit bookings, and they gave him the win over JBL, so there wouldn't be any lawsuit against WWE, JBL, or any of that other stuff for a dangerous, toxic work environment, which would mean he had grounds for a lawsuit. It's on the scale, not as bad, but on the scale where Meanie needed plastic surgery. He busted him open. He really tagged Meanie a lot in there, as Meanie didn't know it was going to get to that point. So the correlation is kind of there, or the analogy, but they dangled that carrot in front of Meanie, and Meanie took it, and the BWO came back for like a month, maybe 6 weeks, had some matches, and were gone, and now you can't sue. And they released Meanie not long after that.
Hey, there's one even worse than that, amazingly. You know the guy that New Jack stabbed?
Mass Transit?
No, the other guy, Hunter somebody else. So this is in the 2000s. Nearly killed him in the ring, right? I think he's the guy.
The Florida Independent that was on Dark Side the Ring, where the guy was outside.
Yeah, I think either the promoter or that wrestler went up to him and said, "Listen, if I let you out or drop the charges, or don't make a complaint or say it was all the work, we could take this all around the horn, baby." And New Jack was like, "Yeah. You got to drop the charges, though, first." I went, "Oh, don't worry, I'll do that." As soon as those charges were dropped, he was out there.
Well, what I'm saying is, the scary part is Stu going to be enough of a mark to want to quell this and do it, take it all around, brother, and do the angle with Raja Jackson?
If you've got people like this Douglas Mallow fella around him, counseling, and he may never wrestle again, he may never walk properly again.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's worried about an angle. This dude is actually, he might have permanent brain damage, and you're talking about putting him back in the ring with the guy that did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Doug Mallow guy is probably going to be like, he seems to have a good head on his shoulders, not in the bubble. I would dare, but the temptation with all wrestlers that want to make it, and let's not leave out WWE. At the time that this happened, and you said there's still an ID property. So when's WWE going to really cut ties with them? The longer they keep the ties, and even if they cut ties with Knox Pro, at the time, this is under WWE's umbrella, under TKO. Isn't it like a sue everybody scenario?
Oh, yeah, I think it definitely would be. WWE did rescind that affiliation. I think it took a few days for Rikishi or whoever does the website. I doubt it's Rikishi, but you know what I'm saying.
But it was still valid on the night this happened.
Absolutely it was. Now, let me give you some of the best comments on Chael Sonnen's video. Raja beat Stu so badly that he managed to give Chael Sonnen brain damage as well, which I thought was an amazing comment. 50,000 dislikes is the receipt on how bad of a take this was. You seriously, another one, you seriously said this is a wildly complicated issue. No, it's not. It's simple. He almost murdered this guy, fool. Another one, this is the sound of 1.34 million people collectively losing respect for our favourite uncle. Sad day. And the last one, Tito Ortiz has officially surpassed Chael in IQ. Which is another amazing comment, if you've heard some of the things Tito has come out with, or not, when he's just stood there with his CTE-addled brain, not knowing what to say. Sean Strickland from UFC also came out with a terrible take as well, but he said rehab only. But yes.
Yeah, can I just ask you and everybody out there a question? What is the mental makeup for this and the other ones we're going to talk about as well? To basically, I can understand Chael in a way, not understand like it's completely wrong. He's protecting his friend and his friend's son. It's quite obvious, right? He's trying to do that, but it's just such a wildly inaccurate, tone deaf, lack of awareness take to have, and then sit there and double down on it. I just don't understand why nobody's seeing it. Like I asked you on Patreon, and I'll ask you 3 or 4 more times. What am I missing? What are we missing? What are we not getting right? What are we not seeing right? Because it seems like there's way more people taking the opposite take on this or stance than we would have ever guessed. I thought this would have been, like you said, it's not a complicated issue. He literally tried to murder this guy. If nobody pulled him off, he'd still be punching him right now.
The next on our list, Rob Van Dam. Stevie, do you like to be patronized? Because, boy,
I love it. I was 31 years in wrestling, of course.
Well, good. You've got decades of being patronized too, but at least now you don't even have to leave the comfort of your own seat to be patronized for 50 minutes, courtesy of Rob Van Dam. The worst example of rage bait engagement farming I've seen in wrestling podcasting in a while, because I'll give you the tweet in a second. I'll save the rest of what I put for the people in the Patreon to read what I put in the script. Here's what Rob put like a day before he put his show out. So far, I got Rogers back. Looking forward to talking about it tomorrow on my podcast. Then later on, maybe a day or whatever, he after the fact started spending hours arguing with people on Twitter, all pointing out what a horrible take this was straight away. And who said that either lost respect for him or Rob was saying, you should just accept my opinion, or we've got difference of opinion, or whatever. And then he responded to one fan saying he was condoning the actions of Raja Jackson. And then he responded with, "It's weird that you think I condone what Raja did." And he said, well, if you've got Raja's back, what? That means you're backing him up. We've all agreed what English words mean. That's what that means. And then afterwards he goes on his podcast and keeps using patronizing terms like basic thinkers might say. You saw some of it before you passed out, probably, of boredom.
Well, that's I'm usually accused of being an overthinker, so not a basic thinker. I don't understand that whole tweet. Like, is that something to like promote his podcast and say, listen to what I have to say? But so far I got Rogers back with no explanation in the tweet. And then when he did it, I watched maybe about 10 minutes of it. I wasn't quite sure outside of the basic thinker thing. I mean, I'm thinking about it pretty basically. Like Chael Sonnen says, it's an overcomplicated issue, which is kind of, connected to this way of thinking. And I'm thinking, it's pretty basic. It's not complicated to me. And there's this weird, like I said, this weird Stockholm syndrome in the professional wrestling world to do that. Is Rob friends with Rikishi? Is this a way to protect Rikishi as well? Because we have Mark Henry talking about this as well. I don't know. And I asked the question once again. When I'm looking at Rob or listening to Rob, watching him for 10 minutes, or even the Chael Sonnen video or the Mark Henry, and I'm like, what am I missing? What am I getting wrong here? I watched the same video they did. As a matter of fact, we watched some of the live stream before and after. We watched the thing during the day. I think we have complete context on what happened. So what's missing here? Please let us know. I don't know.
Rob said he wanted to start by saying best wishes to SykoStu Smith. Hopefully he will regain his health and do it quickly. That's a shame. He definitely didn't deserve what happened to him. If you thought that me saying that was somehow hypocritical because my text said that I back Raja, then you are one of the basic thinkers that can't understand how those can both be true in the same universe. I'm not picking a side with that post. If I did, I'm not even saying that it would be Raja, apart from the fact that he's got his back. All I'm saying, it's like when Jim Ross said that Vince McMahon was looking ugly, and then he said, well, that's the pot calling the kettle black. One has nothing to do with the other, right? So I'm not saying that this guy Stu deserved what happened to him by saying that. I got Roger's back. What a wonderful example of two completely disparate examples of things that have no correlation whatsoever to prove a point that you haven't proven. What's that got? How does that prove anything of what you're trying to make your point with? And then you say, well, I got Roger's back, but that doesn't mean I've got Roger's back.
Well, we get to a point in this later on that I want to comment on, because we did talk about how real violence, the one-punch death, one-punch murder, one-punch knockout, is a real thing that people in the wrestling bubble are not very connected to because we're in simulated violence. So, and then Mark Henry has a quote about him not being able to fight that I'll comment on.
Oof.
I don't know. I want to know why he said he got Rogers back. That's the explanation I don't quite.
Do you think this is just engagement farming and just really?
Well, that's what I mean. Was it a hook to have you watch his show? It's a real question. Rob's not the type of person that I would know to do the rage bait, or the people that want to watch an RVD podcast or follow Rob Van Dam don't need a hook or a bait or a tease or something controversial. That people just, in that vein before this, people just love Rob and love his take on stuff, and they'll subscribe and watch his show. That's why I don't understand why he would tweet something like that to get people to watch, if that's what you're saying.
When I watched everything, and when I say that I have his back, I'm not saying I'm going to stand back to back and fight a crowd of effing million people that are trying to lynch him. What I'm saying is I see the pathway that he took that led to what happened. The one thing that Rob actually did make a good point on before I tapped out of listening was that he described Roger as Bob Hollying SykoStu, which is actually kind of true, because, I mean, you're friends with Rene Dupree, and they had a disagreement, and then Bob waited until the match itself, where Rene obviously thought they were working, and then Bob knew they weren't. And it's not the same level, of course, of violence, but there's some kind of correlation there. It's
just not what we're supposed to do. That's as easy as that. Whether it's Bob Holly or Rene, whether it's mass transit incident or any of this stuff, once you get in that ring and you do something like that, it's got to be protection on both ends. And that's what I was saying about protecting the business on the YouTube exclusive, that if you protect the business, you're not protecting, like kayfabe, there's people on the other side, we can't hear us talking and exposing the business, but it's protecting the roster and everybody who has anything to do with a company or a promotion or the business, protecting them from guys like Raja Jackson that aren't clued in, and you're going to hurt or do worse to another human being. And for him to say that, like, I go back to Chael saying this kid wasn't angry. All I saw was anger from before, during, and after. That would be the one word to describe this kid. Like, it just nuclear levels of anger, like uncontrollable anger. So, yeah, but the Bob Holly, it's never right no matter who does it to who. For whatever reason you have, it's never right.
Because I was part of this, sort of unwittingly. So you'll remember this, is when I interviewed Maven, and then he mentioned something about Rob smelling, right? Or whatever it was, and it was a baby powder, talcum powder. And then Rob, for whatever reason, did like nearly 30 minutes on that topic. Like, he couldn't let it go. And it was really weird. And I just sort of thought, that's so out of character from what I, as an outsider, sort of presumed Rob was like as a person. But he just, and then somehow it ended up being like he dreamt of a gay fantasy that involved you somehow or whatever. I don't know what it was.
Well, he'll never use Nair again. That's, I couldn't convince him to use Nair. But now I have a body groom, so I don't use it either, Rob.
Good.
You know, Rob's always been, if there's one wrestler or person that I know and have known for years, and at this point decades, would say, that's a totally zen dude, and that's a totally, if anyone's going to let things roll off his back, it's Rob Van Dam. So like you said, about the thing, I think him and Maven squashed it or actually did a video together about that. So I don't know if they were just kind of working together, brother, the little handshake.
So that was like Inception, because I was on Rob's, who was on Maven's, and then I did one as well. So I was like,
you reacted to the reaction of the reaction.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was funny. Anyway, his own commenters and his own YouTube videos, to a person, are mocking him on it. I mean, these aren't cherry-picked comments. These are the top 6. You know, there's no like, oh, latest or what I want to... quote, this is some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Quote, Rob is not even capable of basic thinking. Quote, who would have thought a guy almost getting beat to death in the ring would expose our heroes as morons? Quote, calling a 25-year-old a kid seems really effing dense, which we've actually addressed before as well. Quote, yeah, both of these dudes are clowns. Justifying a guy almost killing another man who was unconscious is wild. Quote, Rob, Stu lost most of his teeth, broken multiple facial bones and was choking on his own blood and teeth, was put in an induced coma. Nobody told Raja to beat Stu until he was dead. They told him to give him a receipt. You know what this means and to what degree a receipt should be. There's no two sides or justifying anything. There is zero justification for what happened. Not a single person in the back said, hey, go kill Stu in the ring. He even said, I've always wanted to beat up a pro wrestler for real. He's aware that he is about to do something he shouldn't. I mean, that's put wonderfully from that person who commented on Rob's video. But like it's like 100% negative. And even on Chael's, it was 100% negative.
The weird part about this is it's the inverse. Because aren't the fans usually accused of being bloodthirsty, desensitized, all these different adjectives for pro wrestling fans that they just want to see you jump off the thing, take the bump, light yourself on fire, go through a table. But they have the most empathetic, my Philly accent, they have the most measured, caring, sympathetic approach to this. They have the most human reaction to this, is from what I see. This gives me faith in wrestling fans once again that they get it. They get it more than some of the guys get it at this point.
Anything else you want to say? Because once again, I watched like the first 8 minutes and I couldn't take any more. You watched more than I did. Anything else point-wise that we need to bring up? Because it was just, once again, it was just, I must be just a basic thinker, but it was just drawling and rambling and didn't make any sense. And once again, I don't appreciate being patronised, being called a basic thinker, because, you know, I actually sat down for hours on end researching this and putting together some, I think, good thoughts, as did you. Like, we've actually given this a lot of thought, and we don't live on another planet.
Well, then again, you could be a basic thinker because it's a pretty basic situation to interpret. All you got to do is watch the chronological order of things, or all you got to do is just watch the actual thing and then watch Raja afterwards. And then when someone goes something about it being fake or something like that, he goes, no, I really beat him up. Right? The person was trying to get him to, oh, it was an accident. But he goes, no, I did it on purpose. So it's pretty basic. This doesn't sound like Rob to me. I know I watched it. I saw him. He was saying the things, but this is out of character for somebody that usually would actually be somebody I would consider to be an anti-bully type person.
Yeah.
That wouldn't stand for it.
He's doubling it down, like Chael is. But Chael's got a dog in the fight. Rob doesn't. I don't understand this. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, it's a crap take. But the thing is, it's not only a crap take, it's 50 minutes of crap takes.
That's why I keep asking you what we are missing. And you just said, we researched this thing. I've watched everything multiple times, including whatever I can get through from the reactions based on these people. But what are we missing? Nothing. It feels like there's some serious gaslighting going on.
Right then, well, we've had 2 bad takes on the situation there, and this one I think takes the cake. I've left this till last. Mark Henry. The TMZ headline, he actually gave an interview to TMZ, and the headline is, WWE legend Mark Henry, wrestler SykoStu, deserves some blame for Raja Jackson incident. Now, this is just a list of quotes, really. Did you actually watch the entire video?
I watched most of it. Like I said, it just hurts my head sometimes, the mental gymnastics that everybody's doing to try to put this in a different light. it's pretty basic for basic thinkers like us.
So, right, and he says this quite early on. It's like, I don't know all the situation. You know, I've not watched the whole thing. But you're sure gonna pick up the phone and then give your opinion like you're an authority on the situation. And quite frankly, keep this in mind as well from Mark Henry. It just constantly comes across like he's projecting his own horrible experiences from when he first got to WWF in '96, right? This just seems like complete projection on his part. So it's just coming from it's just coming from an entirely wrong place. Like, when I came into wrestling in 95, 96, I had a lot of the same issues. I didn't like the ribbing, I didn't like the joking. I don't know the full story, but I do not know the full story. But I do know what I saw, and it looked like he wasn't smart to what was going on, he being Raja Jackson. And the dude that was messing with him bit off more than he can chew. How hard is it coming in, you know, as an outsider, so to say, that doesn't have experience to come in there and expect to properly know what's going on then? So once again, you know, it's putting on him, he's got inexperience. The hazing days, the carny bullshit days, are over with every one of these journeyman guys that get drunk before the show and sit around and talk crap to all the younger kids and tell them how the old days were. That's so over with. Because the guys that's coming in are from MMA guys or college students like my son, people that's in entertainment and have other walks of life, and you can't act like carny bullshit to these guys and girls. How bad a look is this for the sport? Just everybody seeing this. And I believe the school is WWE ID program. It's a bad look. It's not that. It's not the ID program. First of all, the ID program is so well polished and so well tempered that you would never have that problem in their system. That was in the system. What's he talking about?
You just had the problem. That's why you're getting interviewed.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, it's such a polished system. But hang on, you're complaining about an affiliated school of the WWE ID system, and it's running a show like that, which, as you discussed earlier, Stevie, is unprofessional considering it's affiliated with WWE.
It looked like carny BS. There's part of it I do agree. Like that particular word, when I saw them outside in the parking lot, maybe partying a little bit, I can't. If someone hit someone with an empty beer can, the beer can was full previous to that, correct? So the culture there is very much carny, and as I say, indie, not WWE ID, indie BS as well.
Secondly, it's not a bad look for pro wrestling. It's a bad look for the company that he performed at, that are allowing him to, you know. Anyway, it's a bad look for him. It's a bad look for him being Stu. It's a worse look for the guy that got beat up, because now we know you can't fight. And back in the old days, if you lost the fight, you lost your job. You know, so those maybe those days are over too.
But I thought those days should be over too, right? Okay.
Yeah, you know those days that you really, really hated, where people get fired for losing a fight. Apparently, he's lamenting. He's picking and choosing.
It's very weird. It's very, very weird.
You know, so
most people get into pro wrestling because they can't fight. I'm being one of them. If I could fight, I told you, if I could fight, I'd be in MMA just fighting once every 6 months and making more money.
But it's the thing, though, is that people get into wrestling for a multitude of reasons. A lot of MMA stars got into wrestling because wrestling paid better. A lot of people get into wrestling because they like it more than mixed martial arts. Why
did MMA and football? They found out how tough it was when they got into it, because it's not easy. It's a grind. But MMA, other sports like football and other things, get into pro wrestling. Why? They think it's easier.
I was going to say 2 reasons.
They're not going to get hurt. They're not going to get hit for real.
1, they were cut in NFL. 2, they were injured in NFL and can't continue. So therefore,
no. But I'm not talking about it's not their first choice. What I'm saying is, if I got hurt playing football. Football was too rough. I'm tired of getting punched in the face all the time. So let me go to pro wrestling, where nobody will touch me, nobody will hit me. I can make pretend, I can cut promos, and I can make a lot of money. Do you see what I mean? Do you see that? Okay, you welcome somebody in there that wasn't trained, he punched it. He can't fight, but we're not getting into pro wrestling to be fighters. That's not what we're doing. And people that are fighters that get into pro wrestling are not getting into pro wrestling to do shoot fights. They're getting into pro wrestling to make pretend. This is weird.
Yeah, so, maybe those days were over too, but in the modern sense, just to correct you.
Oh, by the way, let me stop you right there. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Mark is talking about that the promoters like Bill Watts, Vince, anybody would say, if you go out to a bar, if you go to a public place and you get into a fight, you better win because it's going to look bad for kayfabe. He's not talking about a real fight in the ring or in the back. He's talking about fighting marks in a bar or a restaurant. So if you go out, be careful. If you go out, better not eat where the baby faces are if you're a heel. That's mostly, it's out of context. It's if you fight a fan outside, you better win, because if a fan can beat you up, people aren't going to believe in you. That it's totally different.
It says, just to correct you, I guess, the interviewer, that doesn't supposed to happen, and it shouldn't ever happen on both sides have enough respect for the business. 3 more quotes. Hey, this dude is acting up. I'm going to give him a pass today, but you need to get him in order. This is talking about the initial confrontation, with the can bonking on the head. Because if I wanted to take his head off, I could. And then the older guys that sit around drinking at the building before the game, before the show, get rid of every one of those guys that's like that. The journeyman drug addicts, alcoholics want to be tough guys. Get rid of them. They don't fit the mold for the business anymore. I would never hire him at all. If a guy showed up to my show drunk or was sitting outside in the parking lot drinking before the show, he would never work for me. Stu is more to blame for this even happening once they got in the ring. If indeed what I saw was what I saw, which is people before the show during the daytime, drinking and intoxicated or partially intoxicated regardless, and you bust a bottle over a guy's head, and talk trash like the guy was not going to do nothing. If Stu had put his hands on me, it would have happened in the parking lot right there. He's putting an awful lot of blame. One, presuming... Okay, right. One, yes, you can argue very much so it's unprofessional to be drinking before wrestling. That's fine. That's true. One, you're presuming he's drunk. 2, you're sort of missing the point, the nuance entirely, that he did this because he thought this Roger Jackson was a worker and he was saying hello. It wasn't from a place of malice. It might have been from a place of silliness. You know what I mean? But, he's putting it down that, he's a screw-up and he's an alcoholic and he doesn't deserve to be in the wrestling business. He's making an awful lot of leaps there on the character of Stu, I think.
But at the same time, ignoring that, guess who else shouldn't belong anywhere near a wrestling promotion, a building, a ring, or anywhere near the business? Someone with the temperament and immaturity of Raja Jackson. I would definitely say that that's a lot scarier than a dude that drinks in the parking lot. And like you said, you don't even know if the guy's drunk or not. But if I was working at Guy Stu, I'd be like, please don't drink before our match. And then he would say, oh, I'm smartened up or whatever. The Raja kid doing what he did, and everybody, I should say, because Black Pearl, the AJ guy, and there was guys in the background, look what they were part of the cookout, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it looked like it's a culture thing. And I've said it, and I'll say it again. That needs to stop. There needs to be a wall, a barrier between the access to the wrestlers like that and what goes on. And also, there definitely, if it's a WWID thing and people are drinking before the show and not taking it seriously, and I've saw some of the physiques, there's a lot of people in that roster not taking it seriously. That's what I mean. If you're talking about well-polished and it's vetted, Knox Pro would never be, outside of the political affiliation with Rikishi, would have never been picked. Am I wrong?
That would be my guess.
No, so we both have an educated guess about this. So it's just, Mark, once you say, I did not watch it, I don't know the whole story, you shouldn't say anything. I don't know why he even took the interview, because it is a really bad look. If he watched the whole thing from that beginning point, which he's right. Hey, if Stu hit Mark Henry in the head with the thing, even if he took liberties with me and I'm not a tough guy, something would happen right there and then. Whether it's an argument, it gets heated, we end up tangling with each other, and then it's over. Or I'm never working that guy again because we're just not going to get along. But we were clued in that it was squashed. There was closure, the handshake. Now, the face of Raja told a different story, but this was not a thing where the whole day Stu was sweating, going, well, I'm going to do the thing with Raja tonight. What's he going to do? They shook hands. It was explained it was work, and that was it. Was it stupid to do the thing with the beer can? Of course. But it should have been squashed right there, one way or the other.
Once again, to reiterate, bonking someone lightly with an empty beer can is not a capital offence. The one thing I got out of Mark Henry is, one, he's projecting his own insecurities and his miseries and his locker room experiences 30 years earlier, which has no bearing on this whatsoever. He just... Two, which is the most important thing, he said, I haven't seen everything, I don't know all the facts. But you're more than happy to get your name out there and basically embarrass yourself with this horrible take. And three, he had to make sure to put over WWE.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part there. I think that's across the board. Chael Sonnen's a fan. Maybe he hopes to go to WWE someday. Rob's the strange one because Rob doesn't care whether they call or not. As a matter of fact, I think didn't he turn down WrestlePalooza? Didn't they want him to work Cena?
Really?
I had heard a rumor that they called him. I could be wrong about this, but he turned them down because Cena said, I'm going to work somebody who I haven't wrestled in 10 years or whatever, or over many years. If I'm off base, please disregard. But then again, Rob has always been a free spirit and not a company man. He's always done his own thing. That's why those comments were kind of most confusing out of all three. I can see Chael doing it, defending his friend and his friend's kid. Also, maybe hoping to get to WWE someday. I can see Mark Henry doing it. But the comments from Rob, if I didn't watch them myself, at least 10 minutes of it, I would not believe you. I would not believe these show notes.
Right then, let's end the Stuart Smith and the Raja Jackson thing there. Then we're going to get into WCW. And if you skip the first half of the show, welcome to the Stevie Richards Show, episode 61, where we're going to be talking about WCW Part 3. Well, I know where we're going to start. We're going to be talking about what we started last week, and this is nicest WCW wrestlers personnel ranked once again. So this is going to be ultimately part 4, because I'd forgotten I'd done part 1 and part 2 like nearly a year ago when we were doing the Invasion episodes some time ago last year. So, are you ready? Are you ready to tackle this with
I'm
a
ready.
Clear head?
I'm ready. I'm ready never to get booked again, too, based on a previous thing you might have missed. You might want to go back and watch how I supposedly destroyed any future in wrestling.
Deary me. Right then, let's get to the first one. So, I know it says part 2 here, but it's actually part 4, but whatever. The remaining guys, parts 1 to 3 are already on YouTube, or parts 1 and 2 are. First name on this is Mean Gene Okerlund. And now, just to reiterate, A is absolutely fantastic guy. You knew him pretty well, really got on with him. B, pretty darn good guy, or maybe didn't quite get to know them enough, but you know, you like what you saw, you like that person. C is either lukewarm on them or didn't really know him that well, and then D is total butthole. So, A to D, Mean Gene.
And we do have an S tier that we did. Brian Clark last week was the sole member of the S tier. Yes, Brian Clark.
Not Brian Adams.
Clark.
You said Adams as well, but I
went along with you. And I'm like, and the worst part of it was, yeah, I still speak to him to this day. I'm like, oh my God, what a terrible, terrible take. Right up there with Mark, Robin, Chael. So, all right.
So I'll re-answer it for the clipping anyway. First up, Mean Gene Okerlund.
Mean Gene Adams. No.
Yes, Mean Gene Adams.
Mean Gene Okerlund. He's a solid B. Never got to know him much, but every time I interact with him on TV, I told you that Mean Gene Okerlund, J.J. Dillon one where I go up to Raven and say, hey, I got you. You're almost making as much money as me. I was trying to negotiate the contract. One of my favorite segments of my entire wrestling career. Gene was so gracious and so nice. Personally, only knew him a little bit, but he's a solid B.
Your close, long-time personal friend. I got that wrong, I know I did. Sean Waltman, 6.
Didn't know him at all in WCW. Got to know him on the Indies a little bit. I would say he's probably a B. Not as solid as Gene because I didn't have as many interactions with him. But also he's an animal lover. I used to follow him when he had travel with his dog and put it up on social media.
That stuns me, because you're in WWE for years together, or at least a couple of years together. You're in WCW and Indies, and I would have thought you've bumped into him a lot more than that.
Bumped into him. Hello, goodbye. How are you? That's it. But never really had a personal conversation with him, except when he had his dog. There was an independent wrestling show in Oklahoma, and I remember that. And he talked about how he adopted the dog, why he did, the emotional support, stuff like that. So definitely, he has a good heart from what I see, especially post wrestling. So that's why he makes a B.
Alex Wright, the German. And if you want to know what the Germans are about, pick me and you'll have one hell of a victory. I promise. That was from WCW Thunder.
And I'll play Kevin Nash. I don't care what you do. I'm still getting paid. Alex Wright, I would say C, only for the fact it was even more of a hello, goodbye thing. Never really got to know him, but I've heard good things about him. So it's just a C strictly on. Dude, I really like the Berlin gimmick, how he reinvented himself. I didn't know it was Alex Wright.
Was it Russo who hated it? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
They did nothing with him after.
Should I give him a B because he's a shooter? I don't want him. Well, I'm never getting booked again, so
he's
it doesn't
big
matter.
Dude now as well. He's like
big
300
dude.
pounds.
Yes. He did
huge.
the Adam Rose thing and just thickened up, man.
Do you know, when I spoke to him, he was a lovely dude as well. If you want to change it to a B, I'd be happy to do Bushwhacker Stevie.
I'm doing that, but it was supposed to be Alex Wright, but it turned into the Bushwhacker. Sorry.
We'll stick with C, but basically a B. You just didn't know well enough. The Queen, Deborah McMichael.
B. Solid B. Because not only from the short time that I knew her, but the convention circuit, the signing circuit is where I really got to talk to her here and there. Always very nice, always very gracious. And the way she actually even made the fans were really nervous approaching her. You know what I mean? And she would be very disarming and gracious to the fans.
I don't know if we did this on a previous one. I hope we didn't. But Macho Man Randy Savage. I know it was I'm sure a pleasure of your life wrestling him, even though you didn't get any offensive moves. And it doesn't matter. And
it's
you've told the story
to tell Danny Doring I got to work him. That's all I needed. But he's a C just because I never got to know him outside of that. The only thing Savage did, he clued me in that he wasn't going to stiff me with the elbow like he did the DDP every night. And also the next day, what made me laugh, I couldn't stop laughing all day and even to this day, he came up and in a Savage voice, and plus he didn't have the sunglasses on, so those eyes, those terrifying eyes, comes up, shakes your hand, not in a work sense. I'm talking about, a real handshake. And he goes, "So I see you survived." I mean, just, that's it. I didn't need anything else.
Just to clarify, if the A to D ranking didn't make it into the clip, if nothing else, A is someone that Stevie knew really well, really loves. B is a really good person, maybe not knew enough. C is kind of didn't really know them, or not ambivalent. Ambivalent's the wrong word.
Neutral. Just
neutral on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, ambivalent means having two irreconcilable emotions at the same time. So excuse me that I messed that up. And then D is butthole. Right. Gentleman Chris Adams is an interesting one.
It is. I may have only talked to Chris once, maybe at the worldwide tapings or something. Never had anything to do with them. We talked about the super kick and stuff. I actually asked him, "Can I do the super kick tonight?" Because he's the inventor of it. And actually, Shawn Michaels and myself both admitted that Chris Adams threw the best super kick because that running start and the way it's a savate kick, not even a super kick. So never had many deal. I would say C, although there are stories about Chris that would make him a D. I don't have any personal run-ins like that with him.
Yeah, if you've got nothing to say about them, I'll just cross them out. Silver King.
And nothing. I never dealt with him.
I figure the luchadors all just stayed to themselves for the most part. And the language barrier, of course.
They were generally nice and respectful. They shook hands, said hello, all that stuff. But a lot of those guys, they try to fly them in on Sunday night, and there would be delays and other things, and some of them would be rushing to the building on Monday. Very much so. But they still beat Bischoff there because sometimes he didn't show up until after 8.
Yeah, but you know why that was? Is that they were taking the latest flights they could so they could wrestle on a Sunday in Mexico and then fly Monday morning.
100%.
Jody Hamilton.
Never got to talk to him. He was always in Gorilla or the War Room. Say go, that was about it. That's about the most I ever talked to Jody.
I may have asked this one before, but I know a B or an A is coming. Rey Mysterio Jr.
You know what? I don't. He's a solid dude. He's a really nice guy. Never had many dealings with him, but based on knowledge and just knowing his reputation, he's an A. But based on my personal experience, just a C, because I never had any interaction with him personally. Hello and goodbye. That was about it.
Interesting.
No, but that's not a negative. That's just neutral, and I don't have any personal experience with him.
Damien 666. Now, we're going to be talking about the story later on, but Damien 666.
I'd have to give him a C, too. Outside of when I worked him, it was hello and goodbye.
Okay,
See, this is the thing about wrestling, too. This is the thing about wrestling, and I had to kick myself out of this as well. You know, we use the term love a lot. Oh, I love that guy. Oh, I love him. He's a friend. He's this and that. But after I got out of the business, and especially when I got out of the bubble, I really re-examined. I mean, look at the Stu thing. Those guys were supposedly his friends, like the Doug Mallow guy said, you know? So when I say friends, good dude, this and that, I have to base it on my experience with the person. So when I say, I like the guy, that really means something. When I say I love this dude, he's like a brother to me, it now has weight and means something, at least to me.
Nick Patrick.
I give it a B, because Nick was always decent to me in WCW, and then in WWE, we really got to know each other. I remember over in Europe, Nick and I were the only guys who put ketchup on our eggs. and that was our bonding moment. But he was always cool. He was always very cool.
There's one name I forgot to put in that we've got to put in. Charles Robinson, who'd been bit by a bat recently. We never made it onto the show.
Oh, he's a Z.
Dude, it's
way down, Chris, the graphic.
The bat, right? Like, after, what's the joke? It's like, Charles was bit by a bat, and after 5 days of agony, the bat died.
That's a Chuck Norris fact.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yep. Well, I did text him and asked him, and he goes, have you become a vampire yet? And he goes, well, that's why. And in true humility of Charles Robinson, he goes, that's why I haven't aged. And I was like, at least you're humble. And then I said, I can't believe you made yourself get bit by a bat just to avoid going to Europe. I'd do it.
F.
I don't want to travel internationally. Less to see you.
Are we?
Oh, he's a D. He's a D. He's a D.
That's fine. That's fine. Good. D. Charles Robinson.
I mean, here he is, just like the coattails of Ric Flair. You know what I mean? Literally just little Nate.
It's more egregious than when David Flair did it, wasn't it?
It was. Actually, you were disrespecting the entire Flair family. Dare I say that David Flair did a much better job being a Flair than you did. I don't mean that. I mean the inverse.
Bobby Blaze.
Never met him.
Oh, that's a shame. I like Bobby a lot. He's really nice. Okay. Steve Regal. He was Lord Steve Regal at the time. We're not talking Mr. Electricity Steve Regal. We're talking William Regal.
I'd have to give it a C, because I didn't get to know him even until in WWE. I never really knew him that well. I mean, when I speak and I put over Regal and talk about him in a professional sense, and when I say he's a C, it's not saying he's a bad guy. I've heard he's a really great guy, but we haven't had that many outside of maybe one indie match and then just kind of being around each other.
Johnny Swinger.
Oh, Johnny Swinger's a friend. He told me I'm never getting booked again, by the way. I give him an A. He's a friend. He's been a friend for decades, so he's definitely a friend outside of wrestling. I wish to God he would escape the wrestling bubble and do something after wrestling, because he's too good to be a part of the wrestling business.
Glacier.
Ray Lloyd. I would give him a C. I don't know him that well.
Meng,
I would give a strong B, not because I'm scared, but because he is he's the most lovable, murderous person I've ever met. I guarantee you, Raja Jackson, it would have turned out differently if it was Meng.
Barbarian,
nice guy, but never really had any personal conversations with him. He was always very nice, very gracious. Hello and goodbye. I give it a C.
So I've talked to Barb a few times, met him in person, everything, and I just every single time, oh, James. He always said it like a Bond girl. I love it. What a nice fella that guy is. Barbarian was such a lovely guy.
Well, should I bump it up to a B just based on your vouching?
No, you don't have to. No, this is
okay,
only your thing. Stevie Ray.
Stevie Ray's a B. I got to know him after. Obviously, he didn't go to WWE, but after wrestling, just had conversations here and there. I love this. I don't know if he still does a show or does things on YouTube. I'd love to know his take on the whole thing that we talked about earlier.
Mark Curtis, Brian Hildebrand. He was a referee in WCW for a couple of years.
Yeah, rest in peace. He's a B. Very nice, very gracious. Never got to know him super personally, but a very personable guy, and definitely just terrible way to get sick and pass away. It sucks.
Chavo Guerrero Jr.
I would give Chavo a B, not because of WCW. Most of these people I didn't even interact with in my 4 fabulous months of WCW, but I got to know him in WWE and got to know him on some indies. But just a friendly acquaintance. I never got to know him that personally, but he's done a lot of great stuff outside the business as far as, not outside, but the Netflix stuff. Like he did like stunt coordination for Glow and stuff like that, I believe.
Yeah. I think he had a comic out at one point, which is crazy.
I think he did. He's a good dude.
Now, this is someone you had very brief interaction with, I'm sure, but Miss Elizabeth.
I'd have to give her a C because I had as much interaction with her, if not less, than Savage. But very nice. Thank you very much after choking me on the ropes or on the apron and everything. I mean, this is like, the C is not a bad thing. Like I said, just hello, goodbye, professional and courteous.
Teddy Long.
I'd give Teddy a B. And based on the fact that I loved seeing Teddy at the gym. It was so motivational that Teddy was doing an hour of cardio and I was right there with him. And he was outlasting, if not beating, most of the guys half his age in the gym. That's really, really cool.
All right, I remember Godfather telling me that like he had a special breathing technique which is why he was so good at cardio. So when I talked to Teddy Long, the first thing I said was like, "Dude, what's the secret to doing the cardio and the breathing?" And I don't have any trick. I just get on there and do it. And it's like, you lying bastard! You know you've got a trick of doing it or some special breathing technique. You just don't want to clue me in.
I think he does like the Wim Hof method or something, the deep breathing, the holds and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't have any technique. I just get on there and I'm like, I'm sweating. It must be working. Then my back goes out.
Virgil.
Ooh.
I know where this is going.
I have to give it a D. A D because somebody that literally, and I hate to speak about it, but I knew it. I wrestled Virgil in the Indies. Actually, the Virgil assault on me on the Indies was like on the way to feeling like the Raja Jackson one. Every punch was real. Every kick was real. You couldn't slow him down. You couldn't stop him. He was getting his stuff in whether you liked it or not. And somebody that just talked such a great game in the locker room and wouldn't do anything on TV. That's what I mean. He was always putting himself over. Was he a nice guy? He was cool. I got through all that, especially on the indies. But when I worked him on the indies, I was fighting for my life. To the point we did a tag match on an indie. I think it was West Virginia. Raven and myself versus him and somebody. And Raven left me in there to get killed. I mean, it was just bad. He just never got it. He never got it.
Here's what I'm going to ask, though. Shane Douglas said this. He said before Virgil got to WWF, he wrestled him. He said he looked amazing. Virgil, unbelievable body. He said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do everything. Planned out the entire thing. And then he said nothing happened, and then the match was terrible. Has anyone in wrestling history been signed to big money contracts for an extended period of time in major companies and got worse? Like, he started from terrible and got worse.
Yeah, and there, I mean, he had everything. He had the diesel blueprint for a guy not his size, but the bodyguard, the valet, whatever you want to call him. And then when he turned against DiBiase, I think DiBiase, man, I need him on my side, because if he turns on me, there will be no nights off. So it wasn't just me that was like, I wrestled him after WWE. So he was even worse then after WWE. So Shane, I don't feel crazy now, because I was like, just like we were talking about the Rajay Jackson thing, what am I missing? What am I getting wrong with this, with Virgil?
Scotty Riggs.
I would give him a C. Never got to know Scotty. We worked that one match on Nitro. It wasn't a great experience. He definitely didn't like putting me over, and we never really talked after that.
El Dandy, she'll scrub it.
Oh, he's a hell of a competitor, this El Dandy, right? Who are you to underestimate El Dandy? This guy's a competitor.
Hey,
My favorite Bret Hart promo of all time.
It's because it's his best ever. It's amazing.
And who is he talking to? Gene Okerlund, who played right along with it.
I don't know if it's that interview or another interview where it's the same era, because he's got a groin pull, and he turns around to Gene and the fans say, Gene, tell these fans that I've got a groin pull, the likes of which they have never seen. Gene, you probably don't even have a groin.
The other thing, all right, there's a three-way tie with Bret Hart promos. There's the El Dandy one. There's that one that I didn't know about. And then, because for some reason Goldberg didn't like to be called Bill Goldberg, and Murray goes, how about that, Bill Goldberg?
In the WCW.
Like, that's the original troll right there from Bret Hart.
There's another one. This actually, and it was a great interview as well.
Bret is an underrated, I know now with people thinking he's better, he was an underrated, dry, humorous guy. Bret had a lot of comedy that was very dry in what he did. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, there's one where he gets to the WCW and he's talking with Ric Flair. And, Rick says, repeat that little line, the best and whoever. And he's going, I'm the best there was, the best there is, the best whatever will be. And he goes, and if you don't like it, too bad. And that's it. And it's great. And then afterwards, he goes, and let me add a little woo. And then he goes, woo. Because he can't do the high voice. It's like, amazing.
It's like me imitating Johnny Ace, imitating Ric Flair. Woo.
So he just goes, woo. It's like if dial-up internet tried to woo.
We need that, Bret. Unless Bret's been trolling all of us for 20 years and trolling Goldberg, and deep down, they're like literally friends that are laughing about this. I don't think that's true, by the way.
Brad Armstrong.
Oh, Brad Armstrong's he's an A. And I didn't get to know him too personally, but anytime I would ever talk to Brad and ask a question, and for a guy that never got pushed to his true potential, he had the best attitude backstage. Like literally, if you were to be like, happy to be here, that's a Brad Armstrong right there.
Two more names, right? Lenny Lane, and I'm bringing this up for a reason, because a fan wrote in with his Lenny Lane story. But Lenny Lane.
I'd have to give him a C. I knew him, but I didn't quite know him. We worked together. We talked some here and there, but it never, I assumed if we talked more, we'd have somewhat of a friendship, but it would be C. But I think I talked about this before, and if you want to go to the story, I'll kind of explain it and maybe put it in the context.
Okay, so the Carnegie Clown, or Carnage Clown, whichever way. Stevie, I'd love to know your thoughts on our interactions with Lenny Lane in WCW. I met him once when I was 16, and he was so rude to me, I tore up his autograph and threw it in his face. I didn't approach at an inappropriate time. He was literally advertised to be signing autographs after the show, and he had absolutely no line.
Well, I will give you some context on this, and I don't know the exact thing, but I know the environment. We've all been there as workers, including myself. You're frustrated, you work hard, you're getting in shape, or you're already in shape, you're in incredible shape, you're having good matches, but you're not getting the opportunity. You're labeled in that spot. Lenny Lane, myself, other people, no matter how hard we work, no matter how much we try to recreate ourselves, we're coming to the ring during the Marine trailer, during the commercial, we come back, We're doing the job, and it just keeps getting worse. No excuse to ever, especially in this, where you're actually in a dedicated autograph environment, there's no excuse to treat the fans anyway like this and be disrespectful. Even if a fan is trying to goad you into reacting negatively and has a camera, be extra gracious to the fan. I know that now. I've made the mistake. Lenny as well, in this case, has made that mistake. And he was just carrying, I guess, his heart on his sleeve. His feelings were on the exterior, and he took that attitude out on the fans, which wasn't right. That's just my guess. Because Lenny, whenever we did communicate, he would communicate his frustrations with everything I said earlier. I work hard. I'm trying. Why aren't they giving me an opportunity? Why aren't they? And then you see guys like me come in, Raven, outside guys, and you have to put us over. So it kind of makes you bitter.
And the last name on this list, Bobby the Brain Heenan.
I have to give him a C just based on some of the limited interactions I had with him in WCW, and especially, bless you, and especially...
I tried to mute it. I couldn't do it in time. I'm sorry.
Especially on the autograph and the convention circuit. I got to talk to Bobby. Really, really cool. Really gracious. Told stories because I asked. I always had the opportunity to ask. I would take it and would be real gracious with knowledge. So I would give him a B. But never...
Hang on, you said C before.
No, I said B for him.
You said, I've written C.
Did I?
You said C at the beginning. I'm pretty positive you did. That's why I was stunned you said C. Anyway, B. Good.
Plans change, pal.
Hey, plans change. We'll get to the Damien 666 story because I know that leads into a story about Bobby as well. Did you see Bobby when his health was failing and, he had like his jaw removed and stuff like that? Because when I saw them photos, man, there's like a few things in pro wrestling, tragedies that actually genuinely affect me. And that's one that just ate me up inside because Bobby is with WCW, and I was given a load of videotapes of early 90s with him and Gorilla Monsoon when I started watching in 93. He was my childhood as much as Vince McMahon was, or Jim Ross was, or Jerry Lawler was. Maybe even more at that point. And I love Bobby Heenan. I don't know how much you interacted with him when his health was failing.
I saw him at one convention when he had, after the surgery and couldn't communicate, had his wife with him. And my heart really, the one thing out of anything, and I'm sure he thought this way, or people around him, the one thing, it's like what we do. If my voice goes or your voice goes, or we don't have the ability to verbally communicate, we're out of a job. Bobby's biggest strength and the thing that could keep him from ever aging out of the business, autographs, interviews, podcasts, could do it till the day he's gone. That was taken from him, and that had to be such a torturous thing to do that. I mean, not just the visual of it, but the poor guy, the one thing that like drew money for him, for the companies who worked at, is taken away from him. That's got to be, we all take for granted. At one point I didn't because I couldn't speak for 3 months. So I got a little taste of what Bobby Heenan had to deal with day in and day out. And it's a sin. It's just awful.
Yeah, from what I understand, I've read his books, other people talking about him. He was just an amazing guy in real life as well. And he was like, I guess, we were talking earlier in this episode about Douglas Mallow, someone who actually wants the best for people and actually stands upon business kind of thing. And that was Bobby Heenan, I guess, as well. The reason why I'm bringing up Damien 666 with Bobby Heenan is because he was commentating your quote-unquote match with Damien 666, and apparently he was a huge fan of it, and it came across on television as well. So for those who don't know, the Patreon listeners or viewers will know because they saw the entire match segment as well, and explain more there. But for the non-Patreon types, explain the Damien match, explain Bobby Heenan's impact and the whole bit.
All right, so we were trying to do something creative. You can call it good, bad, or indifferent. But instead of having a match where we just run around, do spots, do whatever, which I was actually looking forward to challenging myself to see if I can work even part of the match in a lucha libre style. I just wanted to see if I could do it. But Raven and I, mostly Raven, but then I came up with certain things out there in the ring, kind of ad-libbing. You could hear Raven yelling at me. As a matter of fact, remember, I kind of went off on my own and did my own thing. We came up with something, mostly Raven, that Raven's in the crowd, but he's not like in the front row like the Savage match. He's in the aisleway. Damien comes down. I go to the ring first. Damien comes down, starts slapping hands, sees Raven, goes like this to kind of say, oh, look out for that guy. Damien goes towards the ring. Raven comes over the railing, turns around, and plants him with a DDT, half on the mat, half on the floor. But he spiked him. It was a pretty rough DDT. I'm in the ring talking to Mickey J with my back turned to what happened. Raven rolls Damien into the ring behind me. Mickey J, playing along with it, has not rang the bell until he turns around, rings the bell, and we both, you can't even plan this, both look down, look up at each other in synchronicity and say, what happened? And Raven's just standing there stoically on the outside. Tony, Bobby, they're commentating, and basically what happens next is where the match actually starts, but it's not a match. I go down, I'm like, what happened? And I start listening for a heartbeat. And Tony Schiavone even says, Stevie is listening for a heartbeat. and Bobby's kind of laying out on this, and then Tony's calling me a lame brain, an idiot, whatever. So then what proceeds to happen here is, after listening for a heartbeat, I do the only thing I know how to do as a clueless putz in the professional wrestling world. I start performing CPR on Damien. And it gets worse. This is where I ad-libbed it, because Raven's getting up on the apron. Richards, get up here, trying to and I wasn't supposed to do this, and I didn't tell you this. I did the CPR, and then Damien's laying there selling, and I do mouth to mouth. And yes, I put my lips on Damien's lips. It wasn't this.
That's
which
dedication to a craft, man.
Immediately afterwards, I'm like, Damien is going to beat me up. Raven is going to beat me up because he yelled, Richards! Very out of character, right? The stoic Raven. I get up and I go, he's hurt. He's hurt. To which Raven takes great pleasure in slapping me as hard as he can on my temple, which in reality could have killed me. I mean, he palm slapped me like this part. It knocked me out. I saw stars. I covered Damien. 1, 2, 3. Start jumping down, up and down. Aha, aha, aha. And then the line of the night, the line of my entire fabulous 4-month run in WCW. Bobby Heenan doesn't need to say much of anything except this. What a great match. Aha.
Did you speak to Bobby afterwards? Because
I thanked him. I said, because I thanked him next week, because obviously we didn't see it, but the replay used to play most of the time afterwards from 11 to whatever. And I did watch it back in the hotel room. And then the next week, I hugged Bobby and said, thank you so much. And he was like, for what? I was like, you had the line of the night. You said, what a great match. He goes, it was a great match. He was like, you performed CPR mouth to mouth. He goes, that's what this is all about, right? Entertainment. I was like, wow. So I like hugged him again, walked away. And that's why, selfishly as a mark, he makes a B. I'd put him in an A, but that's for the people I've known and become friends with.
So you didn't include the commentators in beforehand?
No, not at all. And they did an exceptional job. And they appreciate, I think commentators, like what we do here for reactions, especially botch watches, I think a lot of times the commentators, the real reaction is fun to them. Like if you're just sitting there with notes going, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. I mean, you need a blueprint. But don't you agree? The initial reaction, like even Michael Cole, when he says "holy ass" when Brock Lesnar returns because he wasn't clued in. I like that.
Is Bobby Heenan, I think we can agree, is the greatest manager of all time. Is he the greatest colour commentator of all time?
I'd have to say he's the pioneer of what a color commentator should be. You kind of show your butt a little bit. You're always like the comedy relief for the play-by-play guy, or you get things wrong, or you talk yourself into like disagreeing with yourself. And then my favorite Bobby Heenan here is, remember Bobby used to be, I think it was Bobby or it must have been maybe Jesse, when the heel would cheat and then Vince or Gorilla would point it out and be like, oh, my monitor was out there for a second. Mm-hmm. Remember that? Mm-hmm. He'd always have some lame brain excuse, pun intended, to do that. Greatest, man, Jesse's right up there. I have to say, he and Jesse are a tie for first, and then right behind him as a close second would be Lawler. And then that's about it.
Yeah, I think they're pretty untouchable as a top three, I think. Absolutely right. We'll move on from Bobby. I didn't put this in the format, but I wanted to ask you about the WCW Pro Tapings and the Disney MGM tapings, because I guess a lot of people like, some of the backstage stuff. And these tapings were generally for wrestlers who were mostly hungover, busting, doing about, 3 or 4 matches per day, and just getting a load of content out there and filtering it out over the coming months, I guess, basically. Any stories about, Center Stage, Disney MGM? Where was the pro tapings or worldwide tapings?
No, they were at Disney MGM on the ring that went around in the circle. They had the Wildcat Willie mascot. They had the applause and boo thing. People, they were bringing people in from the attractions that weren't wrestling fans. So it was like a sitcom, where they would tell you when to cheer, when to boo, when to do this, when to do that. So the crowd was really, and then they would get rid of them and bring a new crop of people in. And yeah, it would be a good minimum 3 months, maybe 4 months of tapings, all done in 5 days. And it was exhausting. And you were working, sometimes 3 to 4 times a day. It was pretty, but to be kind of like based in Orlando, have one hotel room for 5 days and have a schedule, that was pretty cool.
How many matches do you actually wrestle in these tapings? Because like Cage Match or Fight DB or whatever else, not going to have, full listings for these things, of course, especially in the older decades where, there wasn't as many people on the internet to keep track of these things. But the pro tapings, anything else? Do you remember anybody who you wrestled that isn't going to be showing up on any of these databases?
I would have to say there might have been a match planned with myself and Frankie Lancaster. That was one of the people I really gravitated to during that week I was there. We worked Harlem Heat, I believe. I was supposed to work Luger. I mean, there were things that were always being switched around. I did work at least 3 matches, but most of it was the flock sitting not in the crowd, but right outside the spinning platform in a row of chairs. That was really the gist of what we did.
Yeah, the only pro taping we've got is Raven and Stevie Richards versus ? Orlando, Florida. That's it. There's Saturday night tapings where, one was Lenny Lane, one's Jim Powers, one's Diamond Dallas Page that we watched on the Patreon. And there was a house show with you and Scotty Riggs, which you didn't realise ever happened, but as the pro taping, that's the only thing you and Raven teamed up. Don't even know the opponents.
I don't remember that. I do remember sitting in the crowd, and what would happen would be, this is something even early on, I was like, oh, this kind of sucks. Imagine sitting out there in the crowd, and you're not warmed up, nothing at all, and then you got to get in the ring and work. That's what we had to do in most cases. I mean, I give Raven credit because Raven was in the crowd at Clash of Champions and had to come in and work a match on live TV. That was pretty stressful. Not warmed up or anything. I mean, all he had to do was beat me up. It wasn't that hard.
Right, then we're not going to have time to talk about the... I mean, if you thought 4 fabulous months of WCW was a short run, then the second ECW run will blow your mind of how quick that was. We're not going to talk about it this week. That's for a half future episode. Take a drink. But I do want to ask, and I think we've touched on it before, but let's do it. I've got some follow-up questions, so we'll go through it a bit more in depth, I guess, is why you left WCW in the first place. So this is from Mrash X King. These are all usernames from YouTube, by the way. And he says, or Mr. Ash King, I'm sorry, idiot. Do you wish you would have stayed in WCW longer?
Well, I mean, it's revisionist history. I mean, I'm happy with the way everything turned out at this point after the fact, because it did build a lot of work ethic by not being, I was always worried that if I stayed, and initially the answer would be yes, because I'd be getting paid really good money. They would have took care of my neck surgery. They would have took care of my rehab, my medical bills. But I feel like if I did that, my work ethic would have suffered even more, that I would have became lazy, that I would not have been as hungry, because I would have said, well, for instance, when I was going in my mind, I was saying, okay, I'm on my way out of WCW, but they were offering to pay for the neck surgery. And then Thunder was right around the corner. Terry Taylor told me Eric Bischoff said he was going to take care of your neck surgery and you're going to get a raise because Thunder, everybody's going to get a raise for 2 TV tapings. So my pay would have went from like 85 to like 120 or something, 130. It would have been a really good raise. Plus medical bills paid for. Don't rush to get back into the ring. I would have took a year off after neck fusion. But I think what would have happened is if WWE came along after the fact, say WWE in 2001, I was still there, getting paid, trying to get myself over, maybe got a couple raises, been in the $200,000 to $300,000 mark. But then WWE bought WCW and turned around to me and said, we're going to give you an opportunity, $75,000 a year. I would have probably been spoiled, entitled, and dare I say it, lazy, and said, I'm not coming in for any less than this. And maybe I would have been possibly viewed like a Buff Bagwell. Now, Buff we already talked about that match was not that bad with Booker, but the office had it out for Buff. They already knew. He had a reputation, and he was already 2.5 strikes against him. The same thing could happen to me. Not that I mean to, but I could have said WCW was paying me $200 to $300. I was figured in. I was mid-card. I was getting pushed. Now you want to send me to wrestling school? Do you see what I mean? I would have had heat. More than I already had during the Right to Censor era. So I kind of wish, but I'm really actually glad that it turned out the way it did. And I developed a work ethic that actually carries me into 2025. The work ethic I have here is the fact that I had to earn everything in wrestling. And even when I wanted to earn it, guess what? It didn't work out, but guess what I didn't do? I didn't cry and bitch about it. I just pushed forward and tried to take every objection away from the office as to why to use me or maybe even push me.
Okay, well, I need to harp on this then. So WCW offers you a raise. They offer to pay for the surgery to fix your neck. So why didn't you stay? Why did you quit?
Because I started talking to Paul Heyman.
Uh-huh.
And the writing was on the wall with me being in the flock or being out of the flock. We talked about the Clash of Champions, where I had presented to Raven, well, next time I turn on you, the fans will not believe in me. And he pretty much told me why I was there. And he kept hanging over my head. If you don't do this, if you don't play along, if you don't listen, if you don't, whatever it might be, I'm going to talk to Paige. He's going to talk to Bischoff, and you're going to get fired. So here I am saying to myself, once again, an immature, emotional kid going, I'm going to get fired anyway because Raven has it out for me. He's friends with Paige. Paige is friends with Bischoff. How do I stand a chance politically in WCW? Pair that with talking to Paul Heyman, who's saying, come back home. Come back home. All will be forgiven. So what's one to do? In that mindset, and now looking at it logically now, like, you know what? You should have grew up. You should have got the neck surgery. You should have learned. You should have stayed humble. But dare I say it, money, easy money to sit at home, probably would have ruined me. Would have made me feel entitled, spoiled, and would have felt like I deserve, which in the world, not just wrestling, is your first mistake.
We'll talk about this when it comes time to discuss the short-term ECW return, but apart from, I guess, creative things that Paul was telling you, did he have a money, a number that he gave you to entice you back? No,
not at all. And
did he have a blank contract ready for you to sign?
No, not a blank one. It was probably waiting for me. No, but I feel like what I did was I need to start over again in my mind. So there was some basis of logic that I need to get out before I'm buried anymore. Now, everybody has to remember, 1997 is different than today. Getting buried, getting jobbed out, being made to look in a bad light could carry you for years, if not. Look at Shockmaster. He fell through a wall and people are still talking about it. But back then, it killed his career. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, it's semantics. It's literally fantasy booking to see what if you stayed? What if you left later? What if this happened? What if that? Nobody's doubting, including myself. I'm the first person to say it was mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And the funny thing is, in the comments, people go either, dude, stop it. You're just too hard on yourself. And then when I put myself over for doing something that like I'm really proud of, dude, you're not that good. Be humble.
Ah, dear. I've got some follow-ups.
YouTube.
Your neck. Did that factor into your thinking?
Well, it should have factored more now that it's put this way. You know what I mean? Now that I put it out there verbally, I'm like, if it had to do with my neck, I should have stayed. But it's weird, dude, because the place I was leaving to try to save my neck, and maybe there's a part of that too, back then, that I felt like WCW and Raven and everybody did a bait and switch on me. Because remember, I wasn't supposed to wrestle that quickly. So maybe I'm thinking, well, maybe I come back as a heel and I cut promos and I can get the surgery and I can get pushed by ECW and make money. I don't know. One thing's for sure. I was wrong. I should have stayed. In that vein, the medical part should have stayed. For future, how should I say, work ethic, attitude, and sustainability and longevity in the business, I think in the whole 10,000 foot view of it, I was right in what I did.
Who did you tell you were leaving?
Terry Taylor. And he was just like, okay. I mean, kind of neutral about it, which is very weird because Terry Taylor and Vince Russo, not in WCW, but WWF, but Terry Taylor's biggest advocate for hiring me in WWF and TNA. And that says something about Terry back then and our relationship and how it grew and matured, was he was willing to give me another chance. When I had left WCW, kind of with no notice again, very little, if any.
What was the admin involved in you quitting such a large company? I mean, tons of reams of paperwork and whatnot. Did you owe the company money back or something because you quit early and they paid you in advance? I don't know.
I think it was just one of those mutual release things that the contract ended and that was it. I got very lucky with that. I probably would have been better off if they said, we're keeping you and holding you to the contract, get your neck surgery, sit at home, stop being stupid. I needed to be coached hard, and I wasn't at that point.
Well, just why didn't you stay and get the surgery is the final question. But actually, I think you've already answered this before, but were there any future creative plans for you beyond the flock or breaking up with the flock, or were you just going week to week at that point?
No, it was week to week. If I had any kind of inclination that get the next surgery or going to use you or want you to be a commentator or do something, I probably would have been convinced to stay or at least consider it. But that was the thing too. I should get out because this is ending. Raven has Perry now and he has all the people that were picked for him or he picked. And he literally said, you're on your way out. Like Raven made it clear, you're at least on the way out of the flock. But also I didn't know that Raven was rubbing people in the office wrong. And I probably could have capitalized on that by being favored by them, by not being with Raven.
Right. Before we shut down the show and the whole WCW saga, we are going to look at what went wrong. It's almost a classic what went wrong. Once again, it involves Raven, another flock member later on down the line, Kanyon. And for people who watched this at the time, I'm pretty sure you'll have never forgotten it. It was a live WCW Nitro, and it's Raven versus Kanyon versus Villano's 3 and 4, I believe. And I don't know if... Because Kanyon at the time was very famous for coming up with the innovator of offense, which I guess was a spoof, or maybe not even a spoof, just a takeoff of Tommy Dreamer's innovator of violence, I guess. And they were doing, Kanyon and Raven, I believe, a double powerbomb into a neck breaker. And it goes really wrong very quickly. And the reactions of everybody in the ring, you can tell who's in the pro wrestling bubble and who's not. So, Stevie, over to you. What went wrong?
Well, thank you, James. And I have to give credit to Kanyon, Raven, and whoever else was around that handled this correctly. You could tell right away that everything was like the safety of Villano IV, correct? Villano IV in this way is very, I think it was Villano IV, is very much the most important thing. We're live, pal, or whatever, doesn't matter. His health is what matters. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to go right here. What's weird about this is, even watching it, I watched it happen as I was watching Nitro and then watching it years afterwards. And even now, it's really, he's not getting stuffed as much as most people are from this type of like joint neckbreaker power bomb or even a regular power bomb. If you look at it in slow-mo, Raven's got him right here, grabbing the neck, and then Kanyon's got him here, plus the fact that he's parallel. Now, you would assume that like when Raven has him, if his body and neck are in this direction pointing downward, we're going to get stuffed and we're going to get a broken vertebrae or a stinger. But as he comes down here, well, that right there, did you notice that? A little slip. Like Raven doesn't have it wrapped all the way around here. But as they come down, see the little slip by Raven there? As he's coming down?
Do you think this is part of like, there's a height discrepancy? Because Raven's 5'11" maybe?
That too.
And Canyon's what, nearest 6'3", 6'4"?
That's a great point. You know why? Just like the double backdrop, I explained it before. Double backdrop, you have two different people, two different heights. That person's going to twist in the air. This here, now the only thing I can think of is Raven's neck breaker was something here, but I think how tight Kanyon is to Villano IV. Like if the Kanyon sat back a little bit and he landed flatter across here, but you see how Kanyon is kind of stuffing him down, like on an angle down here? That could have more to do with it. Because watch. Even with the height difference, Raven kicks out this way and lands flat. Kanyon, when Villano IV comes down here, by the way, Nick Patrick, I stand with what I said on the Roger Jackson referee thing. Nick Patrick was a wrestler. He understands what he's watching. So just to let you know. Now watch when he's dropped. Kanyon comes down late. Do you see that? In other words, Kanyon should have sat out even early for this, and then Raven could do the neck breaker. But Kanyon's momentum, it's kind of going in that direction, almost a 45-degree angle. See it right there? Kanyon not being a little further back is like that. I think Raven had the neck breaker. It slipped out a little bit. He landed him flat right here. Kanyon is landing him on an angle, which means the legs are going to kind of land and stuff him right here. Look at Raven. Right away, I think Villano IV must have made a guttural sound or said, oh, God, my name. You know what I mean? Because Raven immediately does something completely out of character here for the Raven character and checks on him. Look, talking to him. Just, are you okay? And Raven is kind of holding him down. I think Villano's trying to turn and Raven's holding him in place. You notice that? Like, don't move. This here, everybody here, this is scary. I got goosebumps in the worst way because no wrestler, like your heart sinks. No wrestler or anybody in the crowd or anybody wants to see this. And look at Raven. Raven's not pinning him. Raven's telling him, stay down. I think Villano is trying to get up. I'm looking at this right here. I got to give it to Raven. Hand on his chest, hand like holding his head in place, knowing something's wrong. Nick Patrick's there. Now, Nick's kind of not sure because he's got the hand up for the count. Raven's not trying to cover or do anything. I don't know if it happens. I don't remember this part. Now, Villano comes in. Yeah, Raven is just keeping him in place to not move. Kanyon is visibly worried, concerned, and scared. Now, let me fast forward a little bit.
Yeah, this is the bit where Villano III then runs in and I think kicks Raven while he's trying to stabilize his brother's neck. Am I right in saying that? Here we go.
Very light work kick. I don't know if he knows what's going on, but he hits Kanyon with a very weak whatever just to try to keep it going. I think he's in shock and Kanyon saying he's hurt. Get out. See, everybody is shaken. You see Kanyon just throwing the worst work. He's just trying to, nobody knows what to do. Raven knows exactly what to do. And everything I've said about Raven on a personal level, please, this can live independently of that. Raven, this is a what went right with Raven's reaction to this. He's just keeping, because I guarantee you, Villano's trying to get up. And he's saying, no, stay right where you're at. Now, Kanyon, for what he's doing, trying to get Villano out, I would have just grabbed him and said, your brother's hurt. Your brother's hurt. Come on, man. Raven is keeping the head in place, pushing that lightly on the chest to keep him down. But look at that. Don't move your neck. Don't move your head. Don't move your back. By the way, Raven was a former Marine. I have no doubt that he was trained in a way to kind of like triage stuff like this. So there might be like instinct kicking in with Raven, or he was just trained in this, or he just has common sense, seen injuries like this and says, don't move. You have to give the guy credit. And now Kanyon's checking on him. In other words, Raven's quote, I can think what he's saying. If someone goes, why didn't you just pin him, whatever? F the match, F the show, F the pin. And you got to give it to Raven. This is one of the most like human moments that I've seen with Raven. You got to give him credit because the Raven character, by the way, isn't Raven supposed to be a stoic, non-caring, apathetic, downright, like almost, I don't know how you say it, devoid of any sympathy for another human being.
A nihilist.
But here he is saying, screw all that.
There's something
Fast forward a little bit.
there's something I want to pick up that you said before. On the powerbomb, you said that... Oh, there's another view, actually. You said that Kanyon was late. I would argue that Raven's early, because shouldn't it be Kanyon who's got, his weight? Shouldn't he be the one dictating when Villano IV gets put down?
You actually have a great point, because Kanyon is the cue to sit while Raven drops. He's already coming down for the power bomb. I would just say that, well, maybe this. It's multitude of things possibly. All right, Raven didn't go in this direction out with the neck breaker when the power bomb was dropped. Kanyon didn't fall first or sit out first. Raven didn't have the neck breaker because of the height difference. In other words, it kind of shouldn't have been done in the first place. And you know what it is? You have two heels right here, and this is a what would be cool spot. Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Where Raven, the heel Raven, is a fighter, a brawler, a guy who just chops meat, a guy with a loaded boot. It's the most Memphis 1980s gimmicks you can get as a heel. So you're right. That's an excellent way of putting it. But I just feel like if Kanyon sat with space, Villano wouldn't have been stuffed in that direction.
On that basis,
Here's another one.
Oh, we've got another one. Great.
Slow-mo. You're right. Raven fell early, created that trajectory. And also, when that happens, usually you kind of run and the guy sits out, so that way the guy's flat.
Well, here's an interesting thing. Yeah, because he's doing the sit out. I see that. But do you think maybe Kanyon was waiting for a countdown or 3, 2, 1 or something, and Raven just went?
It should have been a 3, 2, 1 by Kanyon, who initiated the sit out. It should have been, even if it's not 3, 2, 1 or Lethal Weapon, go on 1 or after 1, it's basically go. Then they go. It's kind of like a power bomb. It's exactly like going into a power bomb. You're here. Some guys say go, or you squat deep, and then the person knows to jump. So Raven didn't mean to do it. It's just something that I think it's a Kanyon move, a Kanyon pitch that says, what, be cool. And Raven's like, yeah. And Raven, by the way, Raven and Kanyon, 9,999 times out of 10,000, they're going to protect it. This was not malicious, not intentional. And I have to say, I really do commend Raven for keeping Villano IV down and keeping it as a medical situation and not turning it into, well, we got to pin the guy, or we got to tag you out and get the other guy in, or the Alex Reynolds guy is completely out in the middle of the ring and they just keep going around his lifeless body.
What's the Alex Reynolds thing? I'm drawing a blank.
The AEW one where he got knocked out in the middle of the ring. And they dragged him to the corner.
I'm totally drawing a blank on that. When was this?
It was the one in Daly's Place where he got knocked out. They drug him over to tag him, and they continued the match. It was like a 6-man or something, and he's just out in the corner.
There's so many instances of that as we.
That's the sad part, isn't it? That when I talk about it, you have to literally sift through, like, well, that kind of happens all the time. Let me try to remember it. Mm. That's the scary part, isn't it?
And it sort of ties back to the Stu Smith and Raja Jackson thing, and then some guy, after seeing him beaten half to death, decides to try and pin him, and then the referee counts. So, common sense, sorely lacking common sense, I think, in the business at times. Anyway, be that as it may, thank you everybody for watching. This is the end of the Stevie Richards show for this week only. Don't worry, we're not going to be reviewing Clash in Paris. That is my call. There's just too much happening, and we were just too exhausted. I think you were pretty happy when I just said we're not doing it, because you reminded me.
I was. It was we were going to do that or WrestlePalooza. We have a funny story about that on Patreon and the origins of it. Yeah, when we did it, and then like my God, and then it's still ringing in my ears and my head like a nightmare when Brian Alvarez says, "Man, they just got in and out and blew through it in 4 hours." I'm like, I use your term. I had a birthday during this pay-per-view.
Yeah, I can see myself physically aging. At least WWE's in time-wise, they feel longer, yet are shorter, because there's so much space in between the matches. Anyway, we're not doing Clash in Paris, but we'll probably end up doing WrestlePalooza as our next review special. But we are out every single Friday with a brand new episode of the Stevie Richards Show on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. A new clip, and there's going to be more than one clip a day, actually, for the next few days on the... actually, as we record this in the next few days, it'll probably settle down by the weekend, because we're sort of still catching up on all the Monday frivolities that we recorded when we did the AEW Forbidden Door special, as well as the breaking news YouTube special videos that we've had to repost 3 times now because of censorship issues and editing issues and all that kind of thing. But I will now throw it over to Stevie to take us out of the show and thank the Patreon fans as well.
I will try to make it short because my Philly accent is in full effect and losing my voice from so many shows. But it's awesome. We appreciate everybody on YouTube. Please subscribe, click the bell to get notified, comment below. We just recently broke 132,000 subscribers. Very humbling, very grateful. I appreciate the support, as well as from patreon.com/Stevie Richards. Remember, watch alongs every Monday morning at 9 a.m., show notes for every episode, and of course, the show within the show, the pre-show, and also we try to do very funny parody cold opens, which I will hopefully have at the top of this full episode. James doesn't watch it, but hopefully he'll catch it. You'll get a kick out of it. Thank you so much for supporting the content. We will see you next week for episode 62 of the Stevie Richards Show. Aha, aha, aha. By the way, that's the most requested thing on Cameo right now. Aha.
$30, baby.
What are you, a smartass?
What are you, smartass? Right, Cameo. We're going to keep this in. Right, so if you want a cameo, Stevie will do the aha, he will do Smart Ass Tony Greer, he will do Johnny Ace impressions. For $30, you're going to get a lot.
Hey, I appreciate everybody watching the show. Hey, catch us on episode 62 of the Stevie Richards Show, in between court cases.
Goodbye.